Chapter 1088. The White Tiger was in charge of killing. Bai Yi was originally the emperor of the White Tiger people, and he could control the power of heaven and earth.
Now,
He had reached the ninth heaven immortal realm, and his strength was even more terrifying. The gung metal sword Qi in his hand could be said to have the power to destroy the world. It was so sharp that it was difficult to block. Facing such a fierce attack, Ling Xian's expression turned serious. With a thought, a shield appeared out of thin air and blocked in front of him.
boom.
The gung metal sword Qi struck the shield, causing the spirit energy to tremble. In the next breath, Ling Xian activated the shield, and the shield expanded in the wind, turning into a shield that could hold up the sky, blocking all the gung metal sword Qi. Immediately after, dense tentacles tore through the air, as if they wanted to surround Bai Yi. No matter how powerful your gung metal sword Qi is, it can't break the numinous treasure in my hand. He smiled proudly. The shield was a connate numinous treasure that he had obtained hundreds of thousands of years ago. After hundreds of thousands of years of nurturing, it had already transformed into a supreme-grade connate numinous treasure. In terms of power, it could be said to be peerless. Even the gung metal sword Qi in Bai Ye's hand could not break through the defense of a supreme-grade connate numinous treasure. Supreme-grade connate numinous treasure. Bai Yi sneered. A golden long sword appeared in his hand. With the appearance of the long sword, the gung metal sword Qi in the air instantly rose by a lot, reaching an extremely dense level. Destroy. The long sword slashed out, and endless gung metal sword Qi crazily bombarded over. The terrifying might caused Ling Xian's expression to change again and again. High-grade connate numinous treasure. He could tell what level the numinous treasure in Bai Ye's hand was at. It was fine if it was a high-grade connate numinous treasure, but it just so happened to contain gung metal sword Qi. Coupled with the other party's strength, the power it displayed was not inferior to a supreme-grade connate numinous treasure. At that moment, Ling Xian felt immense pressure.
Boom, boom, boom.
While Ling Xian and Bai Yi were fighting, the other experts of the two races were also fighting. This battle was to establish the position of the overlord of the myriad races. Therefore, regardless of which race it was, they all fought with all their might. From the true immortals to the Devas, they had turned out in full force. As for cultivators below the celestial being level, they were not qualified to participate in the battle. In the face of such a war, celestial beings were only ants. Cultivators of the divine martial realm were nothing more than dust. No matter how many god martial realm cultivators joined the battle, they would all die in the end. As such, neither the human race nor the Eldar race allowed cultivators of the god martial arts realm to participate in the battle. This was the last foundation of the two races. If they were to lose this battle, they would have the chance to rise again after a period of time with their foundation. Or else, if all of them died in this battle, that would be the real problem. In the void, Feng and Ling Huang were fighting in the sky. The terrifying power wreaked havoc, capable of killing a true immortal with ease. The rules were vast and mighty. Feng Ao stood in the void. Dense human fate gathered around him, condensing into a crown and the mountain and river god robe. He held the Renhuang's sword in one hand and cut through time and space. A way to control fate. It was something he finally comprehended after hundreds of thousands of years of accumulation. He controlled the fate of the human race. Although Feng was only a 9th-level immortal, he was qualified to suppress most half-step Dao fruit cultivators. Only the top half-step Dao fruit cultivators had the ability to contend with him. On the other side, Ling Huang did not condense the Eldar's fate. Instead, he relied on his own strength to launch the most terrifying attack in the simplest way. In the core of the world, Qin Shu Jian was also watching the battle unfold. Jianmu's foundation is indeed profound. Although he hasn't broken through to the half-step Dao fruit realm, he has reached the peak of the 9th-level immortal realm. With his profound foundation, it won't be difficult for him to match a half-step Dao fruit cultivator. He was a Dao fruit expert. He could see many things at a glance for existences below the Dao fruit realm. It had to be said. Jianmu's strength was truly qualified to be called the number one person in the inner world. However, there was a prerequisite to being number one, and that was that no one used any means and only competed with their own foundation. However, Qin Shujian's gaze fell on Feng. He never expected that the human emperor could control the fate of the human race. The fate of an entire race. It was definitely an extremely powerful existence, especially for a top race like the human race, whose fate was even more powerful to a terrifying extent. After condensing the human race's fate, Feng instantly shortened the gap between himself and Ling Huang. Not only that, but he also surpassed him by quite a bit. This way, it was hard to say who would win and who would lose. Fate is ethereal. It won't be easy for Feng to comprehend the means to control it. Perhaps the tiger people are also involved. Qin Shujian thought to himself as his gaze fell on the tiger emperor. The black tiger could control fate and had a lot of insight into it. If the tiger emperor was involved, then it made sense that Feng could control the human race's fate. Strictly speaking, in terms of true strength, there was a slight gap between Feng and Ling Huang. Even if this gap was not large, it still existed. This slight gap in the beginning, perhaps nothing could be seen. But as time passed, it slowly appeared. Boom, heaven and earth lost their color. The sun and moon lost their light. The two top-notch ninth heaven celestial elites activated their celestial core power with all their might. Every collision caused the inner heaven and earth to tremble slightly. It was as if the vast inner heaven and earth could not contain the slightest bit of such overwhelming power. In the endless void, the experts of the Celestial Demon Clan were also watching the battle. The human emperor's strength is even stronger. Marcus's expression was solemn, and there was a terrifying murderous intent in his eyes. The Heavenly Demon Clan originally wanted to participate in the race of the 10,000 races, but in the end, they fell in the hands of the human emperor. 3 of the dozen Heavenly Demon Emperors were killed by Feng with lightning speed, and the remaining Heavenly Demon Emperors all fled. It couldn't be helped. Although everyone was an upper third-level true immortal, the gap between them was simply too big. Even if all the Heavenly Demon Emperors were determined to fight to the death, they might not have the chance to take the human emperor down with them. So, after the 3 Heavenly Demon Emperors fell, the remaining Heavenly Demon Emperors fled back into the void. Looking at now, Marcus suddenly realized. It turned out that the human emperor at that time was not the true peak strength of the human emperor, and the power he displayed now belonged to that human emperor at the peak. That kind of power, so powerful that it made one's heart palpitate. Even someone as strong as Marcus felt that he could not resist this kind of power. He was sure. If the human emperor had displayed this level of power at that time, then the number of heavenly demon emperors that fell would definitely not be as simple as 3. The casualties would definitely be even more disastrous. The human race, Marcus's eyes burst with a cold light. Chapter 1089. The Heavenly Demon Clan. If they wanted to rule the world, the humans and Eldar were the biggest obstacles. The strength that Feng and Ling Huang had shown now made Marcus feel deeply pressured. He knew very well. If these 2 emperors did not die, the Heavenly Demon Clan would have no chance of ruling the world. Should we make a move? A Heavenly Demon Emperor's eyes flickered. Now that the humans and Eldar were fighting, it might be the Heavenly Demon Clan's chance. If Yangming seized the opportunity to kill the rulers of the 2 races, no other race would be able to stop the Heavenly Demons. Marcus's expression did not change. Wait a little longer. Now is not the time for us to make a move. Make a move now. There was no need for that at all. The battle between the human race and the spirit race had only just begun. It had not yet reached its climax. If they made a move now, it would only cause the 2 clans to attack together. Wait. Wait for the right time to make a move. Hearing that, the other Heavenly Demon Emperors did not object. Since the other party wanted to wait, then let them wait. Although there were many Heavenly Demon Emperors in the Heavenly Demon Clan, the one who actually made the decision was still Marcus. Ben Huang underestimated you. After dispersing the torrent of heaven and earth with one punch, Ling Huang's calm expression finally turned serious. Up until now, Both sides had given their all in the battle. He had thought that with his methods, it would not be a problem to suppress the human emperor. However, when it came to the real battle, Ling Huang was stunned to find that the human emperor's methods were not as simple as he had imagined. Especially the method of controlling fate, which made him even more shocked.
It could be said that,
without the blessing of the human's fate, he had absolute confidence in suppressing the human emperor.
but now,
Ling Huang understood that if the battle dragged on, he might be the one to lose. Could it be that fate is really on the human side? He was a little unwilling. If fate was really on the human side, then what was the point of Eldar's efforts?
no.
Ben Huang doesn't believe that the mandate of heaven is in the hands of the human race. My fate is in my own hands, not the heavens. Ling Huang roared, and the aura on his body skyrocketed in an instant, reaching a terrifying level. At that moment, he had a vague premonition that he was about to break through his own limits. Ninth Heaven Immortal. He was already at the peak of the true immortal realm. If he went any further, it would be an extremely mysterious realm. Ling Huang had painstakingly worked for hundreds of thousands of years, but he had never been able to break through that layer of membrane. But now he had a premonition of a breakthrough. You're about to break through. Feng's expression changed as he sensed the change in the aura of the Spirit Emperor. He could feel an immense pressure from the Spirit Emperor. There was no hesitation. He immediately used all of his means to suppress the other party before he broke through to the Soul Emperor realm. Otherwise, given Ling Huang's foundation, it would be a huge problem for him if he allowed Ling Huang to successfully break through. Even with the fortune of the human race, Foam wasn't confident in dealing with Ling Huang. The providence of the human race gathered. The rules condensed into substance. Under the superposition of the two forces, the shaking void wailed and was destroyed. A vast and glorious seal came crashing down from the void toward Ling Huang. You want to suppress Ben Huang? Impossible. Ling Huang's eyes were cold as he revealed his true form that could pierce through heaven and earth.
Boom.
The Jianmu reached the heavens as if it could support heaven and earth. As the branches and leaves swayed, terrifying spirit energy spread out. Tentacles that pierced through heaven and earth tore through the air, trying to smash the seal that was descending. Rumble. The two forces collided, and the tentacles shattered. Emerald liquid spilled out, and at the same time, cracks appeared on the seal. In the next breath, more tentacles came crashing down, and a terrible power wreaked havoc in the void. Foam wielded the human emperor's sword, a supreme treasure condensed from the human race's fortune. Its power was comparable to a connate supreme treasure, and every time it slashed out, a large number of tentacles would be destroyed. However, the Jianmu had too many tentacles, and each one was as long as a mountain range. It wasn't that easy to destroy them. At the same time, Ling Huang's aura was rising steadily, and he was about to reach a critical point of a breakthrough. He's about to enter the half-step Dao fruit realms. Qin Shujian, who was paying close attention to the battlefield, looked astonished when he saw this scene. In his expectations, Ling Huang shouldn't have broken through at this time. As the ruler of heaven and earth, even if Qin Shujian didn't divine the future, he still had some premonitions about it. Although he didn't have a clear sense of which race would become the overlord of heaven and earth in the future, he knew very well when a half-step Dao fruit realm cultivator would appear in the world. Experts at that level were involved in a mysterious realm. Therefore, Qin Shujian could clearly sense it. The first half-step Dao fruit realm cultivator in heaven and earth should only appear after the establishment of the heavenly court. It definitely won't appear now. Could it be that my perception is wrong? At this time, Qin Shujian had to doubt himself. If his perception was right, then what was going on with Ling Huang? He knew very well. Ling Huang's current state was definitely not just for show. He was really about to break through to the half-step Dao fruit realm. If he succeeded, then even with the help of the human race's fortune, Foam might not be able to contend against him. Maybe I'm really wrong. That's not necessarily the case. If Jianmu can break through successfully, the overlord of the myriad races should be Eldar. Qin Shujian murmured to himself. The overlord of heaven and earth was not eternal. The first emperor of heaven was Eldar's, but it didn't mean that the second emperor of heaven would still be Eldar's man. Unless Jianmu could break through to the Dao fruit realm when he became the emperor of heaven, just like he did in the Third Era. In that case, almost no one would be able to shake his position as the emperor of heaven. However, in his inner world, the probability of the other party breaking through to the Dao fruit realm was very low, much lower than when he was in the vast thousand domains. Even if his foundation was really deep to the extreme, whether he could break through successfully was another matter. Zhou Tian said with the star map, if Eldar becomes the overlord of heaven and earth, the human race will be suppressed. Does the Emperor of Heaven really not plan to stop it? In his opinion, Qin Shujian was a human. In his inner world, if the human race was suppressed, the other party might not be able to tolerate it. Given Qin Shujian's means, if he really made a move, not to mention one Eldar, even 10 Eldar together would not be enough. The evolution of heaven and earth naturally has its own rules. It won't be beneficial for me to interfere too much. If Eldar is really destined to win, then let Eldar win. Anyway, it's the same no matter who becomes the Emperor of Heaven. It doesn't make much difference to me. Qin Shujian shook his head, his expression unchanged. Chapter 1090. It was the same no matter who was the Emperor of Heaven. What he wanted was the improvement of his inner world and the transformation of his own strength. It was just that. Qin Shujian looked at Ling Huang below with a subtle look in his eyes. That Ling Huang. Could he really succeed in breaking through? If he really succeeded in breaking through, he should have some perception, but now, there was no perception at all. In other words, the other party was very likely to fail in breaking through. Strange. Ling Huang's current breakthrough is almost a certainty. If the breakthrough fails, then where did the failure come from? Qin Shujian was a little puzzled. He couldn't figure it out. He was too lazy to deduce anything. Sometimes, if there were too many things to deduce and everything was clear, it would lose a lot of fun.
So,
in many cases, Qin Shujian didn't want to deduce so much. Naturally, that was pretty good. Occasionally, he could give himself a surprise. In the endless void, many heavenly devil emperors who had been paying attention to the battle changed their expressions after seeing Ling Huang's change. Ling Huang is about to break through. If Ling Huang breaks through, with the strength of the human emperor, he absolutely can't compete with him. Don't worry, Marcus shouted softly, stopping the other heavenly devil emperors from becoming restless. After saying that, the main hall suddenly fell into silence.
Subsequently,
only then did he look at the battlefield below. Both the human emperor and Ling Huang are 9th-level immortals, but Ling Huang's foundation is deeper. The other party must be the first living being in the world, so it's understandable that he's blessed by nature. Without the help of the human race's luck, the human emperor absolutely can't be Ling Huang's opponent. Right now, even with the help of luck, he only has a little upper hand. If the battle goes on for a long time, both sides will certainly suffer. But if Ling Huang breaks through, his strength will certainly increase substantially. When the other party advances to another level, even if the human emperor has the help of the human race's luck, I'm afraid he will be crushed. In this way, my heavenly devil clan's time is up. Marcus' voice was calm. Ling Huang must not succeed in his breakthrough. Otherwise, if the other party crushed the Ren Huang, there would be no such thing as a lose-lose situation. In this way, how would the heaven devil race benefit from this? Therefore, Ling Huang's breakthrough this time was bound to fail. Only if the breakthrough failed would the Sky Fiend race have the chance to plan the next step.
Below,
Ling Huang's breakthrough had already reached a critical point where he was about to transform. He was overjoyed that he had found the opportunity to break through. Ling Huang understood. If he could break through the limits of the 9th heaven immortal, then this battle would be Eldar's victory. An elite that had surpassed the 9th heaven celestial realm was enough to suppress all races in the world. Right now, when facing Feng's attacks, he had to adopt a defensive posture. Then, he would draw upon the power of the unseen to allow himself to enter a state of breakthrough. At this moment, An evil force suddenly appeared out of nowhere, causing Ling Huang's mind to shake. An uncontrollable rage surged from his heart, causing the originally stable breakthrough to suddenly become unstable. Brutal, fury, evil, jealousy. All kinds of emotions surged in his heart, causing Ling Huang's mind to shake even more. In an instant, his expression was ferocious. Heaven Devil. With Ling Huang's knowledge, how could he not understand what caused his current state? In the unseen, there was actually the Heaven Devil clan interfering with his breakthrough. If it was in the past, he would definitely not be afraid of the interference of the Heaven Devil clan. After all, no matter what, the strength of the Heaven Devil clan was just that. Those Heaven Devil Emperors simply did not have the qualifications to threaten him. But it was different now. There was the attack of the Human Emperor in front and the interference of the Heaven Devil clan behind. In an instant, Ling Huang's breakthrough had failed. The spirit god was shaken. Qi and blood surged. The originally tyrannical aura instantly declined. Sensing the change in Ling Huang, Feng's eyes had a strange look. He did not know why the other party suddenly failed to break through, but no matter what, the other party's breakthrough failure was his chance. Immediately, the attack became even fiercer. Seeing this, Ling Huang could not care so much and could only use all his means to resist. Boom! The battle once again became intense. In the main hall of the Heaven Devil clan, more than a dozen Heaven Devil Emperors sat back in their original positions. Just a moment ago, all the Heaven Devil Emperors joined forces and let their power penetrate Ling Huang's body, thus interfering with the other party and causing his breakthrough to fail. Because of the pressure of the Human Emperor, the interference was very smooth. Marcus laughed. Ling Huang's breakthrough failed. He will definitely not be willing to accept Eldar's defeat. Even if the Human Emperor can win, he will have to pay a big price. At that time, it will be our Heaven Devil clan's chance. Hearing that, the other Heaven Devil Emperors also looked excited. As long as they seized the opportunity, the Heaven Devil clan would be able to rule the world. At that time, the establishment of the Heavenly Court. The Heaven Devil clan would truly rule over all the clans in the world and become the strongest existence. They would no longer need to hide in this endless void and not easily show their faces. On the other side, when the Heaven Devil Emperor attacked, Qin Shujian had a strange look on his face. So, it's the Heaven Devil clan who intervened. I was wondering why Jinmu's breakthrough failed. It seems that the Heaven Devil clan has never given up from the beginning to the end. They want to take advantage of this opportunity to directly take over the world. However, in his opinion, the Heaven Devil clan's plan might not succeed. The Human Emperor and Ling Huang were both fools. It was impossible for them not to have any backup plans. If the Heaven Devil clan was prepared, the two clans would definitely be prepared as well. Next, it was to see which clan would have the last laugh. This great calamity has lasted for hundreds of thousands of years. It's time to end it. After this battle, the number of true immortals in the world will probably decrease a lot. Qin Shujian smiled. To maintain a balance in the world, there could not be too many true immortals, nor too few. Once there were too many true immortals, there would be a great calamity. It would not disappear until the consumption reached a balanced stage. If the myriad clans declined, then it would also enter a great era of competition. At that time, the myriad clans would compete, and there would be endless powerhouses. Whether it was when they were weak or when they were strong, the world had its own set of balancing methods. Qin Shujian did not have any intention of interfering too much in this.
To put it bluntly,
the self-balancing methods of the world were often much better than him interfering himself. At this moment, the battle between the emperors of the two clans had reached an unprecedented peak. After the failure of the breakthrough, Ling Huang no longer held back. Jianmu's body was extremely powerful. Immediately after, the spiritual qi of the world swarmed over. The condensed and solid rules surged over like the Yangtze River and the sea, wanting to completely suppress the human emperor. Foam held the human emperor's sword in his hand. When the long sword slashed out, it was incomparably sharp and terrifying. The aura of destruction. It filled the world. Chapter 1091. Human Tao Prospers. A vast and mighty voice resounded throughout the human race. The luck of the human race shook, turning into a sea of smoke that spread out in all directions. The mountain river god robe on Feng's body fluttered without wind, and the condensed luck of the human race turned into a seal that suppressed down. The tentacles cracked. The void was destroyed. Ling Huang was directly smashed down from the sky by the seal, falling towards the ground. Rumble. The earth shook. The ground suddenly split open, revealing a bottomless canyon. The human race and Eldar instinctively stopped in front of such a vibration, and then turned to look at the canyon with a shocked expression on their faces. What was going on? None of them could react. At this moment, foam fell from the void. His aura was vast and mighty, sweeping across heaven and earth. Immediately, a smile appeared on the human race's face, but Eldar's face was pale. Obviously, in this battle, Ling Huang had lost. Below the canyon, Ling Huang once again stepped into the air, but his body was already in a sorry state. Feng's expression was calm, his voice loud. Ling Huang, you have already lost. Eldar no longer has the strength to fight against the human race. Surrendering now is the best choice. If you stubbornly resist, it will only cause the Eldar to suffer heavy losses. Surrender. 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 The human race side raised their arms and shouted. The Eldar side felt great pressure, and all of them looked at Ling Huang. Surrender or not? It still depended on the Emperor's decision. In fact, after fighting for so long, many Eldar did not want to fight anymore. After all, a battle that had lasted for hundreds of thousands of years without any rest, even a true immortal would feel tired. However, the success or failure of this battle was related to whether the Eldar could become the overlord of heaven and earth. Therefore, no matter how tired they were, before Ling Huang spoke, they would not easily admit defeat. Ling Xian shouted angrily at this time, Emperor, let's fight it out with them. Eldar, will definitely not lose to the human race. Admit defeat. He would never admit defeat. He looked at Bai Yi as if he wanted to devour him. Up until now, he had yet to determine a victor between him and the White Tiger Emperor. Ling Huang looked at the humans calmly. He could feel the emotions of Eldar behind him. His heart was filled with complicated emotions.
Submit?
He, the Eldar, had been the #1 clan in the world ever since he was born. When had he ever fallen to such a state? Ben Huang is the first living being in the world. I, the Eldar, am also the #1 clan in the world. If it weren't for Ben Huang's guidance, your human race wouldn't have had the chance to be born. Now you want me, Eldar, to submit to your human race? You're dreaming. Ling Huang's voice gradually became indifferent and cold. His eyes were already dyed, with a faint crimson red. The Eldar mountains shook. A terrifying power rose from within. An ominous premonition caused Feng's expression to change. Do you really not care about the life and death of the Eldar? If the Eldar submit to the human race, what's the difference between that and destruction? In the past, when the Venerable One nurtured the dragon vein, he was the ancestor of all veins in the world. I had already set up a method in the dragon vein, but I didn't want to use it. But now I have no choice but to use it. Ling Huang's expression was cold, and one could vaguely see madness. Dragon vein. That was the ancestor of all veins in the world. If the dragon vein existed, it would be filled with spirit energy. If the dragon vein was destroyed, even if all veins in the world didn't collapse, at least half of them would be lost. At this moment, the dragon vein trembled, the Eldar mountains trembled, and all veins in the world trembled. A vast amount of spiritual qi burst out from within, causing the weather to change. The endless murderous aura seemed to want to destroy everything. It wasn't just the humans whose expressions changed. Even most of the Eldar felt a great threat from this power. They would die. They would all die. Has he gone mad? In the core of the world, Qin Shujian couldn't help but frown when he saw this. Regarding the battle situation, he had no intention of interfering. Whether it was the Heavenly Fiend clan sneak attack or the Eldar's defeat, Qin Shi Jian didn't interfere in any way. After all, it was a natural evolution of the world, and there was no need to interfere too much. However, he couldn't sit still anymore. It was very simple. The dragon vein was the ancestor of all veins in the world. If the dragon vein was destroyed, the spirit energy in the world would drop by at least 70 to 80%, and it would also cause the world to shake. Even Qin Shi Jian didn't expect this. Ling Huang actually set up a backup plan at the dragon vein, without him knowing. It wasn't until the other party triggered it that he truly knew. This Ling Huang is really crazy. Zhou Tian's star map couldn't help but sigh.
Yes. Crazy.
He dared to detonate the dragon vein. A moment of carelessness could cause the world to be destroyed. Qin Shi Jian stood up and shook his head helplessly. He really doesn't let people be at ease. He didn't want to interfere in the matters of the myriad races, but in the end, he still had to do it himself. The current situation. If he didn't do anything, no one could stop Ling Huang. At that time, the world would definitely be severely damaged. If the world was damaged, Qin Shi Jian, as the ruler of the world, would also be affected quite a bit. So, he definitely couldn't let the dragon vein be destroyed. Otherwise, his hundreds of thousands of years of waiting would all be in vain. He would return to the time before liberation. Qin Shi Jian couldn't tolerate it.
Below.
The dragon vein shook, and the array formations were triggered one after another. It was about to explode completely. Sigh. A soft sigh entered everyone's ears like the sound of heaven and earth. At that moment, time seemed to have stopped. The dragon vein regained its calm, and all the backup plans that Ling Huang had set up in the dragon vein disappeared in an instant. A look of surprise and joy appeared on Feng's face. He bowed in a certain direction. Welcome, Venerable One. Welcome, Venerable One. Ling Huang's expression also changed. Then, like the wind, he bowed. Venerable One. The expressions of the remaining people changed drastically. In the beginning, the name of the Venerable One was still circulating in the world. However, after hundreds of thousands of years of silence, no one remembered the existence of the so-called Venerable One. Those who truly remembered the existence of the Venerable One. Only people like Ling Huang, who had been the emperor of a race since the beginning. The remaining races. The emperor had changed many generations, so it was impossible for them to know much about him. Venerable One. The Tiger Emperor's heart trembled. Then, he thought of something and bowed in the same direction. However, the difference was that he didn't call him Venerable One, nor did he call him Emperor of Heaven. He only bowed silently. Bai Yi did the same. While many experts were bowing, purple energy surged in the sky and turned into stairs that descended. A green-robed man strode over and slowly landed in front of everyone. The moment they saw the green-robed man, the cultivators of the myriad races felt dazed for a moment. It was clearly an ordinary face, but it didn't seem real at all. Chapter 1092. The dragon vein is the ancestral vein of heaven and earth. It cannot be destroyed. I see that this is your first offense, so I will let you off. Otherwise, this matter will not be let off so easily. Qin Shi Jian looked at Ling Huang calmly. A simple glance. This made the spirit clan's emperor feel that his soul was trembling. Instantly, his body leaned forward a little more. Ever since Qin Shi Jian appeared, the furious thoughts in Ling Huang's heart had already dissipated, and his spirit had regained its clarity. He also felt a trace of lingering fear for what he had done just now. The dragon vein detonated. Not only were the humans present going to die, but the people of Eldar were also going to die. Both sides perished together. This was not what he wanted. This junior knows his mistake. Ling Huang admitted his guilt very straightforwardly. Qin Shi Jian nodded. Then he glanced at Feng, and then looked at the myriad races in the world. In this battle between the myriad races, the human race will win. Within 1,000,000 years, the myriad races will not cause any more trouble. Otherwise, I will personally take action and wipe them out. We will obey the Venerable One's orders. Everyone bowed and shouted in unison. When they raised their heads, they found that Qin Shu Jian had already disappeared. He came quickly. He also left quickly. The other party did not use any divine abilities, but he made many emperors submit. That sort of might was even more astonishing than if he were to use some sort of world-shaking technique. After all, even someone as strong as the human Emperor Ling Huang did not dare to show any dissatisfaction in front of the other party. Instead, he was absolutely respectful. Cultivators like them, who were inferior to the human Emperor Ling Huang, did not have the right to look down on that existence. He straightened up. Feng looked at Ling Huang with a faint smile on his face. Ling Huang, how is it? The Venerable One has already said that within 1,000,000 years, the human race will be the overlord of the myriad races. You, Eldar, must submit to the human race. This time you win. The Spirit Emperor gave him a deep look before he left. Since Qin Shu Jian had already stepped forward, then he had nothing to say. He had lost. In that case, he would lose. In any case, the human race could only rule the other races for 1,000,000 years. All he needed to do was to accumulate his strength and wait for 1,000,000 years before making his move. By then, Eldar would be qualified to turn the situation around. Ling Huang was defeated. The rest was much simpler. As the last resistance force between the heavens and the earth, when they completely submitted to the human race began to prepare for the establishment of a heavenly court. Establishing the heavenly court. This was no small matter. Only after the heavenly court was established would it become the true master of all races. It would have the ability to control and make all races submit. On the other side, Qin Shu Jian returned to the core of the world. He didn't kill Ling Huang because he had some friendship with the other party. In addition, he hadn't completely caused a disaster yet. Otherwise, he would have killed Ling Huang with one slap. It would not be just a few verbal admonitions and warnings. With all the races united, it's time for the heavenly court to be established. Once the heavenly court is established, the world will enter a brand new stage. Qin Shu Jian muttered to himself. The heavenly court represented order. Before the heavenly court was established, the myriad races had no order at all. Only after the heavenly court was established would the myriad races have order and understand what rules were. When that time came, the heavenly court would enter a state of stable development. Only when the next great calamity arose would the peace be broken. However, it didn't matter to him. As long as the world wasn't severely damaged, he would cultivate here in peace. In front of the time formation, every day that passed was a profit. Qin Shu Jian could clearly feel that his strength was growing every day in terms of time in the outside world. For hundreds of thousands of years, his strength had increased a lot. Compared to hundreds of thousands of years ago, it wasn't as exaggerated as twice, but it was still 10% to 20% stronger. Don't underestimate the 10% to 20% increase. Based on Qin Shu Jian's current strength, an increase of 10% to 20% was almost comparable to a newly advanced Dao fruit. His strength. It was already comparable to the powerful ancient gods of the First Era. There was a huge gap between him and the Dao fruits of the Ordinary Era. If he could stay in the inner world for hundreds of millions of years and wait for the world to be further perfected, Qin Shu Jian was confident that he could directly suppress Hong Jun, who had not reached Dao integration. Even Hong Jun, who had reached Dao integration, was confident that he could contend against him. This kind of confrontation. It referred to the premise that he did not use all his trump cards. My strength is increasing, and their strength is also recovering. This gap might not be as big as I imagined. Qin Shu Jian shook his head slightly. The previous Hong Jun was not at his peak. Once he recovered to his peak, the power he displayed would not be limited to just that. Not only that, that Dao ancestor also had many supreme treasures. He was missing a Taiji painting, but he still had the Panga banner and the creation jade disc. Under such circumstances, Qin Shu Jian was not sure if Hong Jun still had other supreme treasures hidden in his hands, so he did not take them out easily. The creation jade disc is too powerful, more powerful than ordinary Khanate supreme treasures. Only Luo Ho's god-slaying spear can deal with it. The two supreme treasures in my hands should be able to fight it together, but with the Panga banner, it won't work. Zhou Tian's star map and Godslayer. They could only be regarded as ordinary Khanate supreme treasures, not the top ones. Not to mention, the creation jade disc was about to transform and break away from being a Khanate supreme treasure. It was a terrifying existence that ordinary Khanate supreme treasures could not compare to. Zhou Tian's star map was a little indignant. Emperor of Heaven, if you collect more star cores for me, I am confident that I can deal with the creation jade disc. Forget it. Qin Shujin shook his head and said in a melancholy tone. There are still more star cores. Now, almost all the star cores in the universe have been eaten by you. In the end, they are just barely at the level of Khanate supreme treasures. If he wanted more star cores, he would have to leave this universe. Or else, it was absolutely impossible. He was just saying. In fact, it was already very good to have two supreme treasures with him. Thinking back to the Third Era, the dignified Emperor of Heaven only had one supreme treasure in his hands. Moreover, that supreme treasure was destroyed in the Great Calamity later on. This era was so backward, but he could still obtain two divine weapons that were comparable to Khanate supreme treasures. Qin Shujin was really satisfied. A weakness was a weakness. Anyway, the divine weapons had the possibility of growing in the future. Moreover, as long as his strength increased, he could still defeat all the experts without the help of the divine weapons. However, if it was an expert of the same level, there was still a big difference between having a divine weapon and not having one. Just like Luo Ho. If the demon ancestor did not have the god-slaying spear, he would not be a match for him at all. But with a divine weapon in hand, even if the opponent was not a match for him, he could still retreat calmly. And before he retreated, he could still fight for a long time. This was the difference between having a divine weapon and not having one. Chapter 1093. The Purple Clouds Sea. Since the establishment of the Purple Clouds Palace, the Purple Clouds Sea had been yearned for by tens of thousands of races. Many powerhouses of the tens of thousands of races went to the Purple Cloud Sea, hoping to get the opportunities they wanted there.
But
the sea was vast and boundless. It was not easy to find the exact location of the Purple Clouds Palace. If it was in the past, the sea would be more troublesome. But now, all the beasts at the true immortal level were wandering around the Purple Clouds Palace. The strongest of the remaining beasts were at the 10th level of the celestial being realm. Such strength. If it was in the 4 great continents a few decades ago, it would be difficult enough to deal with.
But now,
even the 10th level of the celestial being realm might not be able to be called a powerhouse. Only those who had reached the true immortal realm could be considered a true powerhouse among the tens of thousands of races.
But
the sea was vast. The preaching in the Purple Clouds Palace had not stopped, and there were also strange phenomena. If one followed the direction of the strange phenomena, they could also find the location of the Purple Clouds Palace. But when they arrived in front of the Purple Clouds Palace, they were stopped by the purple clouds. In the purple clouds, many people were rooted to the spot, their faces contorted as if they had fallen into an illusion. Long live my emperor! In the illusion, the south-guarding King Luo Feiyu saw himself sitting on the throne. The officials below bowed and worshipped, and their shouts shook the court. The scene in front of him was so real that he almost lost himself in it. No, this is all fake. Since I am the south-guarding king of the Great Zhao, how can I covet the throne? Luo Feiyu's expression changed, and then he bit the tip of his tongue hard. The pain forced him to wake up from the illusion. Then, he took another step forward, and then fell into a new illusion. Ascending to the throne, sweeping across the world, suppressing all races in the world. In the end, he sat on the throne of the Emperor of Heaven. But no matter what kind of illusion it was, Luo Feiyu did not fall into it. Instead, he moved forward unswervingly.
Soon,
he arrived in front of the Purple Clouds Palace. He stepped in and saw everyone sitting cross-legged, listening to the Taoist preaching the Great Tao. Seeing this, Luo Feiyu didn't dare to disturb him. He just went to an empty space and sat down cross-legged. After that, he silently listened to the lecture on the Grand Tao. He wanted to obtain something that he wanted from it. As the king of the South, his strength was not weak either. Long before the human clan left the eastern continent, they were already powerhouses in the celestial realm. However, in the current era where true immortals were revered, celestials were nothing. In the Great Zhao, there were more than one or two people who had broken through to the true immortal realm. Even though Dan Hao and Duan Sun of the Five Generals had successfully ascended to the true immortal realm, he was still stuck in the celestial realm. Later on, Luo Feiyu was the first to respond to Emperor Zhao's request for the people of the Great Zhao to enter the Purple Cloud's territorial waters to search for opportunities. Since he could not break through to the true immortal realm in the eastern continent, he could only search for opportunities in the Purple Cloud Sea. Not long after, other people walked past the Purple Clouds and entered the Purple Cloud Palace. Like Luo Feiyu, he did not disturb anyone. He only came to an empty space and sat down cross-legged, silently listening to Hong Jun's preaching.
1, 2, 3.
When the lecture ended, Guiyu opened her eyes. She was stunned. Only then did she realize. Unknowingly, the Purple Cloud Palace was already overcrowded. Immediately after, a sense of joy welled up in her heart. The 10th level of the celestial realm. Unknowingly, his cultivation base had quietly broken through to the 10th tier of the celestial being realm. One must know that when he had just arrived, he was only at the 3rd tier of the celestial being realm. In a single lecture, he had already crossed 7 minor levels. Such a rapid improvement. Even the sect master of the Jade Waves sect was caught off guard. The 10th level of the celestial realm. She was only a step away from becoming a true immortal. In addition, Guiyu found that her realm was very stable. There was no sign of rapid improvement at all. In this way, it would not be so difficult for her to ascend to the true immortal realm. Thank you for your lecture, Master. I can't thank you enough. Guiyu bowed to Hong Jun, the master of the Purple Cloud Palace. That was the previous title. Now that she was listening to his lecture, she had obtained his orthodoxy in a disguised way. It was normal for her to call him master. At this time, the others also woke up. Just like Guiyu, they all lowered their heads and kowtowed, calling out the 2 words teacher. The lecture. Everyone had gained a lot. The worst one had reached the 6th level of the celestial realm, the peak of the saint realm. The rest were all mighty figures above the 7th level of the celestial realm. However, there were not many people like Guiyu, who was at the 10th level of the celestial realm. Looking at the people below, Hong Jun said indifferently, "Since you can enter the Purple Cloud Palace to listen to the lecture, you are considered to have entered the Purple Cloud Orthodoxy and are considered to be members of the Tao sect. In the future, you should take it as your responsibility to promote the Tao sect. Don't slack off. The next lecture will be in 3 years. At that time, if anyone can break through to the true immortal realm, you can be my disciple."
Boom.
Everyone was shocked when they heard that. Their faces were filled with surprise. Taking in a disciple. This was not a small matter. It was different from listening to the lecture now. If they took the other party as their master, they would be considered to be his successor. The benefits they would get were definitely not comparable to simply listening to the lecture. However, the conditions for taking in a disciple were not low. In 3 years of lectures, they had to break through to the true immortal realm. This lecture took a total of 2 years. If the subsequent lectures also took 2 years, it would add up to 5 years. 5 years. It was extremely difficult to break through to the true immortal realm from the heavenly being realm. However, no one backed down because of that. The lecture this time had already let them taste the sweetness. If they could take the other party as their master, their future achievements would definitely not be as simple as a mere lower 3 heavens true immortal, middle 3 heavens, upper 3 heavens. They would all have a chance to touch it. As for whether they could break through to the true immortal realm, that was another story. Except a disciple. Luo Feiyu was stunned. His heart was burning with passion. He had just come to listen to the lecture not long ago. At most, it had been 2 months. His realm had already completely consolidated above the heavenly being realm. If he could continue to listen to the lecture, breaking through to the true immortal realm would not be a problem. Therefore, Luo Feiyu also took the position of a disciple to heart. If he could join the Tao sect, it would be a great thing.
All right.
From now on, the Purple Cloud Palace will be closed for 3 years. 3 years later, the Purple Cloud Palace will open again. Those who are fated can come here to listen to the lecture. If anyone present can break through to the true immortal realm during the second lecture, you can become my disciple. Everyone disperse. After Hong Jun repeated it, he simply waved his hand. The world spun. Before anyone could react, they found themselves outside the Purple Cloud Palace. When they looked at the Purple Cloud Palace again, the palace door was already tightly shut. Chapter 1094. The Purple Cloud Palace was closed for 3 years. Everyone who went to the Purple Cloud Palace returned the way they came. Anyone who entered the Purple Cloud Palace would more or less gain something. Even if they were the last to enter and heard a word or two of the Tao rhymes, they would have a small breakthrough in their realm. As a result, the reputation of the Purple Cloud Palace was completely spread. Even some of the weaker cultivators could understand that there was a shocking almighty living in the Purple Cloud Palace.
So,
after the Purple Cloud Palace was closed, the number of people who went to the Purple Cloud Sea increased. They all wanted to get the opportunity they wanted. But the problem was, after the Purple Cloud Palace was established, all the ferocious beasts of the true immortal level were restricted to the Purple Cloud Palace. However, the number of ferocious beasts below the true immortal level was not small at all. Many of the cultivators who entered the Purple Cloud Sea died in the sea. The Purple Cloud Palace. Why does this name sound so familiar? Doesn't our desolate great world also have a Purple Cloud Palace? Could it be that the two are related? It's hard to say, but I heard that the Purple Cloud Palace was destroyed by the Thunder Calamity. The players of the desolate great world were all stunned. The people of other worlds did not know the Purple Cloud Palace, but they were very familiar with it. After all, as a famous force in the desolate great world, the Purple Cloud Palace was not something that ordinary forces could compare to.
Now,
the Purple Cloud Palace of the desolate great world had just been destroyed, and there was another Purple Cloud Palace in the Great Thousand World. It was impossible not to arouse suspicion. Immediately, there were also players who shook their heads. It might not be the Purple Cloud Palace of our world. After all, one is a game, and one is reality. How can the two be connected? Whether or not it can be connected, who can say for sure? What if it really can? That's true. It can even affect one's cultivation. If it really can be connected, it's not impossible. Some players had subtle expressions. Under normal circumstances, it was naturally impossible for the game and reality to be connected. However, this game was completely different. There was no name, no trace of the publisher, and it just appeared inexplicably and swept the entire world at an extremely fast speed. Suspicion was suspicion. However, there was no substantial evidence to prove that this Purple Cloud Palace was the Purple Cloud Palace of that world. 3 years. To the people of the great wide world, time was fleeting. Over the past 3 years, the disciples of the Purple Cloud Palace traveled the world and spread the law everywhere, expanding the influence of the Purple Cloud Palace. At the same time, in Heaven Abyss, Luo Ho had also established the Devil Palace, allowing its members to roam the world and expand its influence. It was finally time for the 2 Tao fruit experts of the first era to display their extraordinary strength. However, the expansion of the 2 forces did not have much of an impact on the heavenly court. In the end, among the 3 Tao fruits, Qin Shujian was still the strongest. Even Hong Jun would not be willing to fight with Qin Shujian before he recovered from his injuries. To put it bluntly, the heavenly courts were too powerful. If they fought recklessly, they would only harm themselves. At a time like this, it was naturally best to develop his strength steadily. Heavenly Court, Heavenly Palace. 3 years in the great wide world was equivalent to 600,000 years in the inner world. 600,000 years. According to the rules of the great wide world, it was enough for a few true immortals to die of old age. It had evolved over a long period of time. His inner world was completely different from before. It's about time. In the core of heaven and earth, Qin Shujian stretched his body, which was rare, for 600,000 years. He had been staying in the core of heaven and earth, silently comprehending the laws of heaven and earth. His strength was also steadily increasing. As his body moved, the huge core of heaven and earth began to vibrate gently. But soon, the vibration calmed down.
Then,
Qin Shujian scanned the place with his divine sense. He immediately observed the entire inner world. In 600,000 years, the human race has truly become the overlord force of the inner world. Before the next great tribulation comes, almost no race will be qualified to threaten the human race. Moreover, with the current strength of the human race, even if they are really targeted, 1 or 2 great tribulations won't be a big problem. 600,000 years had passed since the human race established the heavenly court. For 600,000 years, the number of true immortals in the human race had completely left the myriad races behind. Not only that, in hundreds of thousands of years, some races had truly submitted to the human race, allowing the human race to grow stronger. In comparison, the other races had been suppressed by the human race. Even Eldar, who was strong enough to compete with the human race in the past, had not improved much. Inside, it was not without the factor of being suppressed. Zhou Tian's star map said, "How long does the Emperor of Heaven think it will take for a Dao fruit-level existence to appear in the inner world? Maybe in the next breath, or maybe in 1,000,000 years." Qin Shujian's expression was calm. Dao fruit. How could it be so easy to achieve? There were already a few half-step Dao fruit existences in the inner world. They were only a step away from the Dao fruit level. However, this step was about the right time, place, and people. If they had enough opportunities, they could quickly break through the barrier and break through to the half-step Dao fruit level. However, if they didn't have enough opportunities, the difficulty of advancing to the Dao fruit level was even greater than the difficulty of advancing from the basic realm to the 9th level of immortal. However, right now, the human emperor of the human race is the most likely person to advance to the Dao fruit level. He has the providence of the heavenly court on him, so his chances of breaking through are much higher than others. After saying that, Qin Shujian stood up, looked around the huge core of the inner world, and sighed slightly. "I've stayed in this place for a long time. It seems like it's time to go back." 600,000 years. For his era, it was an unprecedentedly long period of seclusion. If it weren't for the memory of the Third Era, Qin Shujian would have had problems in this dry space of time. "Emperor of Heaven, don't you plan to continue your seclusion?"
there's no need for that,
Qin Shujian said.
just now.
The inner world had completed another moderate upgrade and reached the same level as the Great Thousand World. In other words, the current growth of the inner world was not inferior to the Great Thousand World.
Similarly,
The moment the two worlds were truly at the same level, the time formation set up by the Great Thousand World would be useless. Unless he could continue to set up the time formation if he could find an existence of a higher level than the river of time in the Great Thousand World. Otherwise, the flow of time in the inner world would be the same as the Great Thousand World. At this point, the time formation would officially lose its effect. There was no need to continue staying in the core of the inner world. Chapter 1095. At the Ninth Heaven. Clouds and Mist. There were heavenly soldiers patrolling and heavenly generals guarding. Occasionally, people could be seen stepping on the clouds and entering a certain place. There were also people stepping on the clouds and leaving the Ninth Heaven. This was the heavenly court. The heavenly court that was officially established after the inner heaven and earth race unified the 10,000 races. The inner hall of the heavenly palace. That was the residence of heaven and earth. Feng, who was sitting cross-legged and cultivating with his eyes closed, suddenly opened his eyes. A wisp of divine light flashed in an instant. In front of him, a person quietly appeared there. He stood up. Feng slowly walked in front of the other party and bowed slightly. "Greetings, Venerable One." Every word and action. Although there was respect, it did not lose its dignity. Looking at Feng in front of him, Qin Shujian nodded slightly. "Since you are the Emperor of Heaven, there is no need for you to be so polite. The Venerable One created the world and is the foundation of all living things in the world. Even if I am the Emperor of Heaven, I cannot forget my etiquette." Feng shook his head. The current him was no longer as simple as the original human emperor. As the Emperor of Heaven, he could communicate with the heavenly Tao and understood many things. Originally, Feng was still not very clear about Qin Shujian's background, but after becoming the Emperor of Heaven, he was very clear about his background. In the beginning, he even tried to get the experts of the myriad races to find Qin Shujian's whereabouts. But there was no result. Over time, the wind extinguished this thought. Until now, when he saw Qin Shujian again, he asked the question that he had been hiding in his heart for a long time. "I have always had a question that I want to ask the Venerable One. I wonder if the Venerable One can tell me?" There's no harm in asking. What exactly do I need to do to advance to Tao fruit? Feng looked straight at Qin Shujian. "I have been in this realm for a long time and have never been able to find the opportunity to break through, so I would like to ask the Venerable One, what exactly is Tao fruit and how to advance to Tao fruit?" At this point, he bowed deeply. As early as 500,000 years ago, Feng was already a half-step Tao fruit expert. 500,000 years later, he was still a half-step Tao fruit expert. Of course, it was impossible for there to be no gains in 500,000 years. During this long period of time, Feng had made significant progress in the half-step Tao fruit realm. He was now much stronger than ordinary half-step Tao fruit realm experts. Furthermore, he had the blessing of the heavenly court's providence. If he fully unleashed his strength, he would even be qualified to contend with ordinary Tao fruits. However, this was only a relative term. The difference between a Tao fruit and a half-step Tao fruit was like a natural chasm that was not so easy to cross. For hundreds of thousands of years, Feng had always been searching for a way to break through, because he knew very well that only by breaking through to the Tao fruit level would the human race be able to exist forever. Otherwise, in the future, the human race might not be able to hold the position of overlord forever. Qin Shujian said indifferently, "There are no shortcuts to advancing to the Tao fruit level. Your Tao is already fixed. If you want to advance, you can only rely on the opportunities in the unseen world. When the opportunity arrives, everything will follow naturally. If the opportunity does not arrive, then everything will be empty talk. Your foundation is deep enough, and with the help of the heavenly court's providence, I believe it won't be a problem for you to contend with ordinary Tao fruits." Hearing this, Feng's heart sank slightly. Relying on the heavenly court's providence to contend with the Tao fruit was not what he wanted. Providence was illusory, and it varied in strength. If the heavenly courts fell apart, then its providence would be greatly reduced. At that time, the power he could borrow would not be that much. Qin Shujian said, "The so-called Tao fruit is an existence that transcends the laws of heaven and earth. It is no longer restricted by the laws of heaven and earth, and is no longer restricted by the shackles of time. When you reach that realm, you can be considered to have entered the stage of transcendence. Half-step Tao fruit, strictly speaking, is still in the category of true immortals. You have only taken a step on the path of transcendence, and it is not considered a true success of transcendence. In the future, when you can go from being under the rules to being on par with them, or above them, then you will be a Tao fruit." On par with the rules. Above the rules. Feng was deep in thought. All these years, he had been thinking about what kind of realm was considered a Tao fruit. Until now. After listening to Qin Shujian's explanation, he finally understood. Is the Venerable a Tao fruit, or beyond Tao fruit? Feng asked another question in his heart. He really wanted to know. What kind of realm was Qin Shujian in? Whether it was when he was weak or now when he was strong, he had never been able to see any clues. As the Emperor of Heaven, Foam also had a trace of undetectable fear in his heart for such an expert. This kind of fear. It had nothing to do with anything else. It was purely respect for the strong. I can only tell you that I can suppress an ordinary Dao fruit with one hand. Qin Shujian did not answer directly, but gave an example. Suppressing a Dao fruit with one hand. Feng's heart suddenly trembled. As expected, this venerable was not as simple as a Dao fruit. He had his doubts. After all, how could an expert who could open up a world and evolve all living things be an ordinary Dao fruit? According to the other party, his current methods, coupled with the luck of the heavenly court, could already contend with an ordinary Dao fruit. However, he had no confidence that he could open up such a vast world. One could imagine. How strong was Qin Shujian? Suppressing the shock in his heart, Foam continued, Venerable, do you think I can break through to Dao fruit? I'm not sure. Qin Shujian shook his head. Half-step Dao fruit, although it has not reached the level of transcendence, it is still half a step. Your future is already uncertain. Whether you can advance to Dao fruit can only depend on your own luck. However, in the current world, your chance is the greatest. I understand. Thank you, Venerable, for answering my doubts. Foam took a deep breath and bowed again, thanking the other party for his answer. Qin Shujian's words gave him a lot of confidence in himself. Since the probability was the greatest, then there was still some hope for him to advance to Dao fruit in the future.
Now,
the only obsession of this Emperor of Heaven was to advance to Dao fruit. Now that he had stepped into the half-step Dao fruit realm, although he could not transcend, the 3 calamities and 6 tribulations that descended were not a big threat. It was almost not difficult to successfully transcend the tribulation.
it could be said that,
as long as heaven and earth were not destroyed, Foam could basically achieve eternal life. However, such eternal life was not what he wanted. Only by truly avoiding calamities and tribulations was the eternal life he wanted to pursue. That was the only way. Only then could the human race suppress the 10,000 races and become the eternal overlord. The current him, although in terms of strength he might be the #1 in the world, but it was not 100%. Because the half-step Dao fruit in the world was not as simple as him. Chapter 1096. After meeting Foam, Qin Shujian left the heavenly court and went to Eldar to meet Ling Huang. Ever since he was defeated by Foam, the Soul Emperor had always been in a state of seclusion. Now he, like Foam, he was at the peak of the half-step Dao fruit level. If he didn't borrow luck, his strength wouldn't be much weaker than the Emperor of Heaven.
Then,
Qin Shujian went to the other races to meet the emperors of each race.
but
He only went to meet the half-step Dao fruit and the 9th level immortals. There was not a single one below the 9th level immortal. Those who could reach the 9th level immortal all had a chance to advance to the Dao fruit level. The inner world was the world that Qin Shujian opened up. The more experts there were in the world, the greater the benefits for him. Moreover, with his current strength, an ordinary Dao fruit would not be able to resist. In this way, Qin Shujian didn't have to worry about the appearance of Dao fruits in the inner world causing the world to be out of his control. Once he left the undying volcano, his journey would come to an end. There are so many 9th level immortals and half-step Dao fruits. I wonder if there will be 2 or 3 who can take that step in the future. Qin Shujian sighed. The Dao fruit was difficult. It wasn't easy to break through. It was still a problem whether one of the 109th level immortals could advance. The transformation of the true immortal Dao fruit was the true washing of the sand. Human Emperor's Palace. Ever since the human race became the overlord of the world, most of the human race's experts went to the heavenly court. This was a true case of a man ascending to heaven.
but
As Feng's palace, the human emperor's palace had been preserved. And Godslayer, it was placed here. There were human race experts guarding the left and right sides of the human emperor's palace to prevent anyone from intruding for no reason.
But
To Qin Shujian, this kind of defense was practically non-existent. He didn't stop him at all. With a step, he easily entered the human emperor's palace. Instantly, a terrifying killing intent surged towards him. That sort of power, which was mixed with the killing power of the world, would have instantly dealt a heavy blow to the mind of an ordinary true immortal. But for a Dao fruit, such killing intent was like a gentle breeze that posed no threat at all. An invisible aura spread out. All the killing intent disappeared. Emperor of Heaven. Godslayer had also woken up from his slumber. He looked at the person who had appeared in front of him and spoke in a pleasantly surprised tone. The next moment, he transformed into his own body and came before Qin Shujian. Greetings, Emperor of Heaven. How is it? Have you gotten used to living with the humans? Qin Shujian smiled faintly. Hearing this, the god-slaying saber smiled bitterly. I don't have any habits. In the beginning it was fine. I could still chat with the human emperor. However, after the heavenly court was established, no one came here. I had no one to chat with to relieve my boredom, so I could only sleep. Speaking of which, his spirit was lifted again. Emperor of Heaven, you're here now. Are you going to take me away? Hundreds of thousands of years of loneliness. Although for Zhu Bing, it was not something unbearable.
But
if he could leave, he would still be willing to leave. No one to talk to relieve his boredom. To be honest, it was really boring. Qin Shujian nodded. Hundreds of thousands of years is enough. There's no need to stay any longer. It's time to go back. After so many years, do you have a premonition of transformation?
no.
Godslayer looked melancholy. Transformation. That was the transformation of 9 tribulations Zhu Bing. He had been absorbing the luck of the human race for hundreds of thousands of years as 9 tribulations Zhu Bing, but he had never found the opportunity to transform.
It could be said that
Now Godslayer's luck was much stronger than that of ordinary 9 tribulations Zhu Bing. Emperor of Heaven, maybe after 9 tribulations Zhu Bing, it's really the peak. The luck of the human race I've absorbed is enough for several Zhu Bing to advance to 9 tribulations, but I still don't feel like I've reached the limit. There's a way to go after 9 tribulations Zhu Bing, but it's very difficult now. It's not so easy to transform.
Qin Shujian said.
The higher the realm, the more he understood. Just like the ancestral armaments. 9 tribulations Zhu Bing was comparable to a natural supreme treasure. Most people only thought that this was the limit of Zhu Bing, but strictly speaking, 9 tribulations Zhu Bing was never the limit. There were still more powerful existences above 9 tribulations. The god-killing spear in Luo Ho's hand. The jade plate of good fortune in Heng Juan's hand. This was a very important proof. Those 2 divine weapons were about to transform. It was just that as strong as the good fortune jade disc and the god-slaying spear, there was no way to really transform successfully. The difficulty was imaginable. Let's go,
Qin Shujian said.
When he stretched out his palm, Godslayer returned to its original form of a stone saber. Immediately, he put the stone saber into his sea of consciousness. He took a step forward. Qin Shujian quietly left the palace of the human emperor. It was also when the stone saber was taken away that the shocking killing power disappeared. All the cultivators guarding the Renhuang Palace noticed it immediately. Oh no! There's a change in the divine weapon. Report to Emperor of Heaven immediately. The faces of those human race true immortals changed dramatically. They all knew that there was an amazing supreme treasure in the palace of the human emperor. The killing aura was proof.
But now,
the disappearance of the killing aura meant that there was a problem with the supreme treasure. This was not a small problem. If that celestial emperor were to blame them, no one would be able to bear the responsibility. The heavenly court, a human race true immortal, reported what had happened in the palace of the human emperor. When he finished, Feng waved his hand. You don't have to worry about the divine weapon. I know what to do. Yes. The true immortal didn't dare to ask more. He just bowed and left. When he left, Foam murmured to himself. The God Slayer should have been taken away by the supremacy. Obviously, there weren't many people qualified to take away the God Slayer. Before he became a 9th-level immortal, he didn't have the confidence to forcibly take away that powerful divine weapon. However, it was impossible for a 9th-level immortal or even a half-step Dao fruit cultivator to enter the palace of the human emperor quietly.
Thus,
the only person who could enter the palace and take away the God Slayer was Qin Shu Jian. Although Foam coveted the God Slayer's power, he also knew that this divine weapon didn't belong to the human race, nor did it belong to him. In that case, if the other party took it away, so be it. After leaving the palace of the human emperor, Qin Shu Jian went to the other clans and took away all the Zhu Bing that had been left in the various clans hundreds of thousands of years ago. After hundreds of thousands of years of worship, the weakest Zhu Bing of the various clans had reached the 6th or 7th tribulation stage. There were also a few 8th tribulation Zhu Bing. If it weren't for the failure of the tribulation, the number of 8th tribulation Zhu Bing would have been even more. As for Qian Shanxue, he had directly advanced to become a 9th tribulation Zhu Bing. P.S. Thanks to book friend 1603151346588258 for the tip. Chapter 1097. In the Heavenly Court. In the inner hall of the Heavenly Palace, Qin Shujian's body, which had been sitting upright for many years, moved a little, and a vast power spread out. Before the power spread much, it was directly restrained. He opened his eyes. There was a faint smile in his clear black and white eyes. Hundreds of thousands of years really passed in the blink of an eye, including the time he spent in the inner world. Taking everything into account, Qin Shujian had stayed in the inner world for 700,000 to 800,000 years. If it was someone else, in 700,000 to 800,000 years, their temperament would have changed a lot. But he was different. For the Dao fruit, hundreds of thousands of years was not enough to have a big impact. Immediately afterward, Qin Shujian left the inner hall of the Heavenly Palace and appeared in the outer world in the next moment. In the outer world, compared to the outer world, it was more desolate. Originally, the battle between the great wide world and the outer world demons caused the creatures in the outer world to suffer heavy losses. Later on, Luo Ho was born. The other party hunted ferocious beasts and creatures in the outer world, causing the remaining creatures in the outer world to suffer a devastating blow. At this point, the life forms in the void outside were basically declared extinct. As he looked to the vast and boundless outer realm, with a thought from Qin Shujian, all of the ancestral armaments stored in his sea of consciousness were released. 9 tribulations Zhu Bing, 8 tribulations Zhu Bing, 7 tribulations Zhu Bing, 6 tribulations Zhu Bing. A large number of Zhu Bing gathered together, emitting an extremely terrifying aura. The sky-breaking halberd and John Doe seemed to have noticed something, and they all looked at the outer world. Xiao Qingfeng asked, "What happened?" While speaking, he also spread his divine thought, wanting to see what had happened. However, no matter how his divine thought expanded, he did not notice anything wrong. The sky-breaking halberd said, "A lot of Zhu Bing's auras have suddenly appeared in the extraterritorial void, and those auras are extremely powerful. I don't know what's going on." "That's impossible. There can't be so many Zhu Bing in the vast 1,000 worlds." Wu Ming also had a strange expression on his face. Those Zhu Bing's auras were extremely powerful, and there were even auras that were beyond his knowledge. In other words, among the Zhu Bing that appeared, there was no lack of 8 tribulations. Furthermore, there might be a 9 tribulations Zhu Bing. However, Wu Ming shook his head. There had never been a 9th tribulation Zhu Bing in the vast wide world. The most powerful one was the 8th tribulation Zhu Bing Godslayer. Godslayer had just ascended to the 8th tribulation not long ago. How could he have ascended to the 9th tribulation so quickly? Besides, even if the other party really did advance, it would only be a Zhu Bing. Judging from the energy fluctuations in the air, it was clear that it wasn't a simple Zhu Bing. Xiao Qingfeng frowned when he heard that. Are there a lot of Zubing's auras? A lot. Zubing wouldn't appear for no reason. It seems that I have to report this matter. Xiao Qingfeng said in a deep voice. There weren't many Zubing in the vast thousand worlds, and they were all in the hands of the human clan. Emperor Zhao had the 1,000 Calamity Spear. Since the sky-breaking halberd and Wu Ming could sense Zubing's aura fluctuations, the 1,000 Calamity Spear should be able to as well. Thinking of this, he left the War God Temple and headed to the Heavenly Palace. Xiao Qingfeng wasn't the emperor of the human clan, nor was he the emperor of the other clans. Therefore, he had been staying in the Heavenly Court to cultivate. He wasn't like the other emperors who spent most of their time in the lower realm. They would only come to the Heavenly Court occasionally. The East Continent. The Imperial Palace. When Zubing's aura appeared in the extraterritorial void, just as Xiao Qingfeng had expected, the 1,000 Calamity Spear had also discovered those energy fluctuations. A large number of Zubing have appeared. A large number of Zubings? Emperor Xiao had a strange expression on his face. What did he mean by a large number of Zubing? The number of Zubing in the vast thousand worlds was limited. There was no such thing as a large number of Zubing. The 1,000 Calamity Spear said, "My senses can't be wrong. There are definitely a large number of Zubing in the extraterritorial void. Moreover, those Zubing are extremely powerful. They're not comparable to ordinary Zubing." Speaking of this, he paused for a moment. The number of Zubing in the world is limited. As early as the last Great Tribulation, there weren't many Zubing left. Unless the Godslayer advanced to the 8th Tribulation, it's impossible for there to be so many Zubing. As the number 1 Zubing of the human clan, the 1,000 Calamity Spear's foundation and knowledge were extraordinary. Even so, the appearance of Zubing's aura in the extraterritorial void still shocked him. It seems that something we don't know about has happened. The Emperor of Heaven should know about it too. Emperor Zhao looked at the Heavenly Court. The 1,000 Calamities Spear could sense Zubing's aura. The God Slayer could do the same. During this period of time, he had been staying with the human clan and did not return to the Heavenly Court. There was no other way. The problem with the Purple Cloud Palace was too big. Many cultivators of the myriad races were heading toward the Purple Cloud Sea. The eastern continent, which they had to pass through, had also suffered many twists and turns. Under such circumstances, Emperor Zhao naturally could not leave at will. He had to guard the human clan at all times. Otherwise, if the myriad races had any conflict with the human clan, there would be endless trouble in the future. Therefore, only with Emperor Zhao guarding the human clan would the myriad races not dare to act recklessly. After all, the title of the leader of the 5 emperors had never been a joke. In the extraterritorial void, the Zubing that had been nurtured by the myriad races of the inner world for a long time all appeared there. Many Zubing's auras gathered. Just the auras they emitted could shatter the void. At this moment, those Zubing looked at Qin Shujian in front of them and had a bad premonition. In an instant, some Zubing fled into the depths of the void. "Come back," Qin Shujian said indifferently. Then, he stretched out his hand and reached into the depths of the void. One hand. He had truly reached the point of encompassing the void and the universe. All of the fleeing ancestral armaments were unable to resist at all. Thus, they were all captured and brought back. Then, an enormous power landed on all of the ancestral armaments, sealing them all in place. "Venerable One, please spare our lives. We have no intention of betraying the Venerable One. Please forgive us." Most of the Zubing were begging for mercy at this moment. The power that they were so proud of was no different from an ant in front of a Dao fruit-level powerhouse. Escape. It was simply a joke. However, as Zubing, it was not easy for them to gain sentience. They were not willing to be destroyed just like that. Therefore, they could only beg Qin Shujian for mercy, hoping that he would pity them and give them a chance to live. In the extraterritorial void among the many Zubing, only 2 Zubing did not speak. The first was the God Slayer. The second was the 1,000 Mountain Blood. The 2 Zubing remained silent from the beginning to the end. Chapter 1098. If I can create you, I can also destroy you. You are worshipped by all the clans in the world and have the opportunity to develop spiritual intelligence. I was the one who created all the clans in the world, so everything you have was given to you by me. Now it's time for you to repay me. As soon as Qin Shujian finished speaking, his finger fell directly on a Zhu Bing. Boom! Frightening power exploded forth. Even ancestral armaments as powerful as them were directly shattered by this power. The Zhu Bing shattered. Before much of the power of faith contained in it could spill out, Qin Shujian forcibly absorbed it and sent it directly into the Godslayer. Seeing that Zhu Bing had been destroyed, the remaining Zhu Bing shuddered, their hearts full of despair. Hundreds of thousands of years. That was how they got to where they were today. But now, all of it was going to turn into nothing. No one would be willing to accept this. However, they were too weak. Even if they were unwilling, there was nothing they could do. They could only silently wait for death to come.
Boom.
Boom. One by one, the Zhu Bing shattered. The surging power of faith contained in it was all sent into the Godslayer. One had to know. Among the Zhu Bing present, the weakest was at the level of the 6 tribulations Zhu Bing. The power of faith contained in it was terrifying.
Now,
the Godslayer was completely immersed in the power of faith. Then he tried his best to absorb it and transform it into his own power. He understood. What Qin Shujian was doing now was helping him break through the limit of the 9 tribulations Zhu Bing. The Godslayer was also very curious about whether there were other levels above the 9 tribulations Zhu Bing. Now he had this opportunity. He naturally didn't want to give up. Among the clans in the inner world, the number of Zhu Bing that had been nurtured and born was not small. The destruction of one Zhu Bing after another allowed the Godslayer to absorb a huge amount of power of faith. Originally, after breaking through to the 9 tribulations Zhu Bing, he could contain so much power of faith that it was like a bottomless pit. However, in front of such a vast amount of faith, there was a trend of saturation. Transformation. 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 Godslayer's aura continued to rise, and he was already advancing in an unknown direction. That power, it seemed to be able to sweep across the universe, causing all the divine weapons to tremble. The Supreme Zhu Bing is about to be born. The 1,000 Tribulations Spear could no longer hide its shock. In his perception, that aura was so powerful that it made people feel fear. Even he felt as weak as an ant in front of this power. The Supreme Zhu Bing. This was definitely a Supreme Zhu Bing. 8 tribulations? No, it wasn't as simple as 8 tribulations. As for whether it had reached the level of 9 tribulations, the 1,000 Tribulations Spear wasn't 100% sure. Because there had never been a 9 tribulations Zhu Bing in the great wide world, he didn't know much about the aura of a 9 tribulations Zhu Bing. After the shock, the 10,000 Tribulations Spear nearly cried out involuntarily. The aura of the ancestral armament is disappearing. I understand now, I understand now. There is a supreme power sacrificing many ancestral armaments to nurture a supreme ancestral armament. I see, I see. Now, he was already a little incoherent. Sacrificing other Zhu Bing, extracting the power of faith to nurture a Zhu Bing, and then letting that Zhu Bing undergo a new transformation. Such a method. In fact, it had existed since ancient times. That said, one must know that regardless of the time, the number of ancestral armaments in the Great Kiliacosm was extremely small. Even if there was such a method, no one would do it. Because even the top clans couldn't be so extravagant as to sacrifice so many Zhu Bing to let one Zhu Bing undergo a transformation. Even if Zhu Bing did undergo a transformation, it was hard to say what the gains and losses would be. Moreover, if the transformation failed, it would be a total loss. There aren't many people in the world who can do such a thing. It must be the Emperor of Heaven. At this time, Emperor Zhao was basically sure who was the one who had caused such a commotion. The heavenly court ruled all clans. There weren't many things in the world that could be hidden from the Emperor of Heaven's perception. Now, such a commotion in the outer realm had reached the point where even a true immortal could discover it. The Emperor of Heaven didn't make a move. This already explained a lot of things.
However,
Emperor Xiao couldn't figure out where Qin Shujian had obtained such a large number of ancestral armaments. The most powerful Zhu Bing in the Emperor of Heaven's hands is the 8 Tribulations Zhu Bing Godslayer. If you're right, then the Emperor of Heaven's goal should be to let the Godslayer break through to the 9 Tribulations Zhu Bing. The 9 Tribulations Zhu Bing. He had never seen it before. To be honest, Emperor Zhao didn't have much of an idea of how powerful such a weapon was. In the heavenly court, in the hall, the Taiji diagram hung in the middle. The Taoist rhymes flowed within it, and people couldn't help but be mesmerized by it. This was the top treasure of the First Era. It had been nurtured by the Taiching holy man for many years and had already reached an extremely powerful level. If it was an ordinary cultivator, they would enter a state of epiphany when they saw the Taiji diagram, and their cultivation would increase tremendously. Even if it was a true immortal, if they could comprehend the Taoist rhymes on the Taiji diagram, they could also improve by leaps and bounds. Below the Taiji diagram, Niu Dali sat cross-legged. The flowing Taoist rhymes descended and covered his body. All of a sudden, the Taiji diagram shook a little. Niu Dali woke up from his cultivation state. He stood up and looked at the Taiji diagram hanging in the air. He was confused. This is strange. Why would the Taiji diagram suddenly show such a strange phenomenon? Ever since he obtained the Taiji diagram, this treasure didn't change at all. After the Taiching holy man died, the Taiji diagram had already recognized him as its master.
but now,
Niu Dali sensed some kind of fear from the Taiji diagram. This made him even more confused. After all, the Taiji diagram was a top treasure, and there weren't many treasures that could resist it. There were even fewer treasures that could make the Taiji diagram feel fear.
but
The changes in the Taiji diagram undoubtedly pointed to many problems. Could it be, what kind of powerful treasure is going to appear in the world? Niu Dali was confused.
however,
He didn't care too much about these thoughts. Any treasure or weapon was fine. It didn't have much to do with him. Right now, Niu Dali only wanted to increase his powers and return to his peak state in the First Era as soon as possible. After that, he would look for opportunities to improve and become even more powerful. If he wasn't powerful enough, he wouldn't have the right to avenge the Taiching holy man.
right now,
It was a fact that the Taiching holy man had died in the hands of Hongjun. It made sense. Niu Dali didn't forget this hatred. Chapter 1099. In the Demon Palace, Luo Ho opened his eyes and came to the black pool. The god-slaying spear was placed in the pool and was vibrating gently. A monstrous killing power was being emitted. That's strange. The god-slaying spear is my treasure. There shouldn't be any divine weapon in the world that can threaten it. Why is it vibrating like this? Luo Ho was bewildered. The god-slaying spear in front of him was obviously under some kind of threat. That was why it did this, to protect itself. To put it simply, just like other living beings encountering their natural enemies, they would deliberately show their ferocious side to intimidate their opponents. The god-slaying spear was like that now. This was what Luo Ho was truly shocked about. The god-slaying spear was a supreme treasure that he had been nurturing since the First Era. Over the past few eras, it had been a true top-notch treasure. Even the good fortune jade disc was not qualified to suppress the god-slaying spear.
now,
The god-slaying spear's change was obviously indicating something. However, Luo Ho could not figure it out. What kind of divine weapon could make the god-slaying spear, which was about to transform to the next level, feel wary and even fearful? After all, in this era, there was no powerful divine weapon at all. Could it be the creation jade disc? Luo Ho thought of a possibility, and his face turned ugly. There was only one possibility for a divine weapon that was about to transform to feel fearful. There was another divine weapon that was about to enter the transformation stage. In the vast thousand domains, there were only two divine weapons that were about to transform. One was the god-slaying spear. The other was the creation jade disc. If it was not the god-slaying spear, then only the creation jade disc would be transforming. Thinking of this, Luo Ho was extremely fearful. Hongjun is already very strong and has many treasures. If the creation jade disc really transforms, then it will be troublesome. In terms of strength, he had no way to fight against Hongjun. Although the two of them had fought in the first era, after Hongjun won, he took control of the world's Dao Sex and his strength improved by leaps and bounds. Looking at himself, he was seriously injured and had to be reborn in this era. Not to mention how much his strength had improved, it was already good enough that he did not regress. One's strength. The gap between the two of them was greatly widened.
Now.
If the good fortune jade disc underwent another transformation, then Hongjun's strength could be imagined. The more powerful a divine weapon was, the more powerful it was. The more useful they were, the more effective they would be. In the hands of Dao fruit, ordinary connate cardinal treasures were already peerless in power. Even the most ordinary Dao fruit would be able to suppress an ordinary ancient god if it was on the verge of metamorphosis. Therefore, if the good fortune jade disc transformed that kind of power, even if he joined forces with Qin Shujian, Luo Ho was not confident that he could deal with them. No, I can't let the good fortune jade disc succeed. The fiend ancestor's mind was filled with thoughts. He didn't want the good fortune jade butterfly to succeed in its metamorphosis, but how to stop it was still a big problem. They immediately started fighting. It was obviously inappropriate. I need to make a trip to the heavenly court, the purple cloud palace. When the god-slaying spear vibrated, the good fortune jade butterfly also vibrated. Hongjun withdrew from the state of cultivation and looked at the good fortune jade disc in his sea of consciousness with a frown. A supreme divine weapon is about to be born. After seeing the state of the good fortune jade disc, he instantly understood. Immediately, Hongjun thought of Luo Ho. The reason was simple. There were only two divine weapons that were about to transform. If it wasn't his good fortune jade disc, then it must be Luo Ho's god-slaying spear. As his sworn enemy, there was no reason for him to sit and watch the god-slaying spear transform successfully. Forget it, I've been here for so long. It's time to move around. Hongjun shook his head and disappeared from the futon. In the astral wind layer, when they were close to the southern heavenly gate, two people suddenly appeared and the atmosphere immediately froze. Hongjun, Luo Ho. Neither of them expected to meet each other here.
Soon.
They were thinking, secretly guessing the other party's purpose in coming to the heavenly court.
Then.
Luo Ho smiled insincerely. I originally planned to go to the Purple Cloud Palace to congratulate them, but I didn't expect to meet you here. What a coincidence. I also planned to go to the heavenly abyss to congratulate them. Hongjun raised his eyebrows. Hearing that, the two fell silent again. After a long time, Luo Ho said, I'm too lazy to beat around the bush. I'll just say it. Is your good fortune jade disc about to transform successfully? It's not that far yet. Where's your god-slaying spear? The same. The short answer made them understand something. At this realm, there was no need for too much suspicion. One question and one answer, and they could basically distinguish between the truth and the lies. Then, the two looked at each other and looked in the direction of the heavenly court. If it's not your divine weapon, then the transformed divine weapon is likely to come from the heavenly court. If I remember correctly, the Qin Emperor has a supreme treasure in his hands. Hongjun's voice was faint. Now the situation was clear. If it wasn't him or Luo Ho, then there was only one possibility. Hearing that, Luo Ho's expression was also complicated. The Qin Emperor has hidden it well, to have such a supreme treasure. He didn't expect that Qin Shujian had a divine weapon that was about to transform and had been hiding it all this time. It was only exposed when the transformation was about to be completed. One had to know. It was not that easy for a divine weapon to transform. With the foundation of the Sanhua sword and Zhou Tian star map, it was absolutely impossible for them to reach the stage of transformation. Therefore, in Luo Ho's opinion, Qin Shujian must have other divine weapons in his hands. It was just that the other party hid it well and didn't expose his foundation. Hong Jun said, "The Qin Emperor has a big plan in his heart. If you join forces with him, it's like asking a tiger for its skin. If his divine weapon succeeds in transforming, even if I succeed in the Tao integration, the possibility of dealing with him is not high. At that time, our situation won't be so good." Luo Ho's expression kept changing. He understood what Hong Jun said. For Tao fruits, there had always been only a division of benefits. Previously, he cooperated with Qin Shujian because he hated Hong Jun, and if he didn't join forces, there was no way to balance Hong Jun. But it was different now. Qin Shujian's hidden means made Luo Ho feel deeply afraid, even if he was now an ally of the other party. But what if? If one day they turned hostile, he would be like a fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Therefore, at this time, he had to make a choice. After a while, Luo Ho said faintly, "The aura comes from the void outside the realm. Let's go and take a look first." Chapter 1100. In the outer space, the Godslayer was transforming bit by bit. The stone chips on its surface were slowly falling down, and sharp divine light overflowed from them. At the same time, the aura on its body was also getting stronger. Qin Shujian clasped his hands behind his back, silently watching the Godslayer transform. When the sharp aura swept over, it disappeared within 3 feet of his body. Zhu Bing's essence is stone. It only gained all kinds of magic after being contaminated with the power of faith.
But
the Godslayer is now shedding its stone essence and evolving in another direction. It seems that the real limit for Zhu Bing to break through the limit of the 9 tribulations should be its original stone essence. Immediately, he changed his mind and thought of something else. The Godslayer was now transforming to a higher level, and it was getting rid of its original thing bit by bit.
Then,
would the Khanate supreme treasures of other eras also have to abandon their original bodies if they want to break through the limit?
About this,
Qin Shujian only had some conjectures, but he didn't dare to be too sure. Now in the void, there weren't many Zhu Bing left. Except for Qian Shanxue, the rest of the Zhu Bing were all shattered, and then the power of faith was injected into the Godslayer to help it transform. If it didn't do this, the Godslayer couldn't have reached this stage. More and more stone chips fell. The overflowing divine light became sharper and sharper. The divine light, which had stopped at 3 feet around him, broke through to 2 feet. Don't think that it was only 1 foot closer. Know that he was a Tao fruit level expert, and it was very likely that he was comparable to or even stronger than Hong Jun at his peak. On this basis, the Godslayer could only rely on the overflowing divine light to get within 2 feet of him. Qin Shujian was already very surprised by the transformation of Zhu Bing. At this time, the transformation was further intensified. In the dark, some kind of mysterious power was drawn and fell directly on the Godslayer. Instantly, the blade vibrated violently. The stone fragments that had existed for billions of years cracked open inch by inch, and endless divine light erupted. The moment the divine light erupted, it swept through everything with the force of a thunderbolt. Qin Shujian waved his hand and collected the 1,000 mountain blood into a sea of consciousness. At the same time, he retreated and did not confront the divine light directly. The divine light was strong. However, he couldn't do anything to Tao fruit level experts. However, he had no intention of fighting them head-on. If this were to affect the Godslayer's transformation, it would be a huge loss. After retreating, Qin Shujian's eyes shone. The power of the real level. This is the power of the real level. 9 tribulations Zhu Bing and above have actually touched the real level. Incredible. Really incredible. He had once faced death. He turned around in the real world. It could be said that Qin Shujian was the one who was most familiar with the true level of power. The red lotus of purgation in his hands was a power that touched upon the true level. This was also his greatest trump card. One had to know. The true level of power was extremely useful even when dealing with Dao fruit level experts. Now, the Godslayer's breakthrough was also related to this aspect. In Qin Shujian's perception, the true power that invaded the universe seemed to be attracted by something and was gathering towards Zhu Bing bit by bit. This power, it was more advanced than the power of faith. Originally, the power of faith could penetrate the illusory and the real. Therefore, the players killed by Zhu Bing would die completely. However, this kind of power that penetrated the real and the illusory was still fundamentally different from the true level of power on a single level. One had to know. The living beings of every epoch could provide endless faith. Moreover, in every era, there was no shortage of experts who could control the power of faith. First, there was the power of faith. Then, there was the power of faith to condense divine weapons. These were all the uses of the power of faith. However, no matter how much power of faith there was, it was difficult to compete with the true level of power. Or else, there wouldn't be so many eras that were destroyed. The reason why the eras were destroyed was that there wasn't enough power to resist the invasion of the true level of power. If there was, the eras wouldn't have come to an end. All of a sudden, Qin Shujian turned around and looked into the depths of the void. The void there shook and two figures suddenly appeared. Hong Jun, Luo Ho. Seeing the person who came, his expression was calm. It was normal for Godslayer to attract the attention of Dao Fruit with such a big movement. The power of the true level. Hong Jun's gaze landed on the God-slaying saber. At that moment, there was obvious shock on the Dao ancestor's face. Luo Ho's expression also changed slightly. The power of the true level. It turns out that after the divine weapons break the limit, what is involved is the true level. On his face, there was shock, passion, and greed. This demon ancestor also didn't expect that after the divine weapons broke the limit, what was involved was the power of the true level. Although Luo Ho had never entered the world of the true level, several eras had been destroyed, so he had a deep understanding of the power of the true level. It was an extremely terrifying power. It completely exceeded the limit of the power controlled by Dao Fruit. It could be said that, in the face of the power of the true level, it was very difficult for Dao Fruit to resist. For several eras, the number of Dao Fruit that had fallen to the power of the true level was not small at all. Then Luo Ho retracted his gaze and looked at Qin Shujian again. The Qin Emperor hit it well enough. I didn't expect that you would have such a divine weapon in your hands. His tone was full of complicated emotions. Qin Shujian smiled faintly. Everyone has their own trump cards. The demon ancestor himself wouldn't reveal all his trump cards. That's right. Everyone has their own trump cards. Luo Ho nodded in agreement. Then the scene fell silent. Only the Godslayer was transforming bit by bit, and its aura became more and more magnificent. After a long time, Hong Jun was the first to break the silence. Qin Emperor, it's not appropriate for a divine weapon that has broken the limit to appear now. Otherwise, it will arouse the vigilance of the true level. I think it's better to temporarily seal this divine weapon. When the time is right, it will be unsealed again. There won't be any problems. Dao Ancestor, when do you think is the right time? When the war stops and the vast thousand worlds get rid of the false and the true, it will be the right time. Hong Jun lowered his eyes and said calmly. Luo Ho didn't say anything, but from his expression, he also had the same idea. Hearing that, looking at the changes in their expressions, Qin Shujian couldn't help but laugh. P.S. Please give me a monthly vote. Chapter 1101. That's right, but I have a question to ask. If the creation jade disc is going to break through, will the Dao Ancestor seal it? Qin Shujian asked. Hearing that, Hong Jun said, if the creation jade disc is going to advance, I will seal it too. Well said. Qin Shujian nodded in agreement, and then his face turned cold again. Unfortunately, the Dao Ancestor's approach is not suitable for me. Today, the Godslayer's advancement is imperative. Anyone who stops the Godslayer from advancing is my enemy. In an instant, the atmosphere in the outer space became solemn. Hongjuan's face turned cold. Emperor Qin, do you really not care about the consequences? I don't need others to teach me how to do things. Qin Shujian was imposing, and then looked at Luo Ho. The demon ancestor has the same intention as the Dao ancestor. I remember that in the first era, the demon ancestor died in the hands of the Dao ancestor. If you cooperate with the Dao ancestor now, it will be like asking a tiger for its skin. You and I are still allies, so you have to think twice about everything. After that, the look in his eyes became meaningful, and the threat was obvious. Luo Ho's face changed again and again. If it was an ordinary person who dared to threaten him, he would have taught him a lesson. But Qin Shujian was different. Not to mention that the other party was very strong. The battle between the Dao ancestor and the demon ancestor had always been a knot in his heart. However, Luo Ho did not hesitate for long. He made a decision. Emperor Qin, Hongjuan's words make sense. If we allow the Godslayer to advance, it will easily attract the attention of several real worlds. I think it's better to seal it temporarily. When the time is right, we will unseal it. At that time, the Godslayer can also advance and there won't be any big impact. Well, since the demon ancestor has made a decision, I won't say more. Qin Shujian nodded, and the look in his eyes turned cold. He stretched out his hand in the void. The Sanhua sword broke through the air and landed in his hand.
Then,
the long sword slashed downwards, splitting the yin and yang of heaven and earth in an instant. Unparalleled sword qi burst out, covering both of them inside. The two of them had expected Qin Shujian's sudden attack. Hongjun took out the Panga banner and waved it gently. A terrifying sword qi burst out. On the other side, a black lotus appeared under Luo Ho's feet. A dense black light was emitted, enveloping his entire body. The next moment, the black light was shattered. In front of the unparalleled sword qi, the black lotus was just an ordinary treasure and had no way of blocking it. It was different from Hongjun. At the beginning of the first era, Luo Ho had many supreme treasures in his possession. However, following his defeat in the battle between Taoists and demons, he had lost most of his spiritual treasures. Not only was the innate Black Lotus destroyed, it only left behind a few Black Lotus seeds. As for the other treasures, only the God-slaying spear could be used. Compared to Hongjun, who had taken out treasures one after another, he, the devil ancestor, had undoubtedly lost a lot of face. When the Black Lotus shattered, Luo Ho stretched out his hand, and the God-slaying spear, which had been placed in heavenly abyss, broke through the air and landed in his hand. The long spear stabbed out. Shocking killing power burst out. Since they had already attacked, there was nothing more to say. Qin Shujian's expression didn't change. Holding the Sanhua sword in one hand, he shot out a fierce sword qi, which was no weaker than the joint attack of Hongjun and Luo Ho. Boom! The void collapsed. The river of time shattered. Just the aftermath of the all-out confrontation between the three Dao fruits could break the river of time. If a cultivator below the Dao fruit level was here, he would be directly swallowed by the aftermath. The battle. Hongjun was even more shocked, because he found that Qin Shujian's strength was stronger than last time. His opponent's strength was slightly weaker than his own. And when he took out many supreme treasures, he had to join forces with Luo Ho to contend with him. Although the method Qin Shujian used in the end was very shocking. But Hongjun believed that the other party's method was definitely a life-saving trump card. Even if he used it successfully, he would have to suffer a considerable backlash. Otherwise, Qin Shujian definitely wouldn't leave it until the end to reveal the clues. And he didn't really attack, but only used that aura to threaten Hongjun and make him retreat. Because of this, Hongjun also had a rough estimate of Qin Shujian's strength. That was, under normal circumstances, his strength was probably weaker than his injured self. But if he fought with his life on the line, he wouldn't be much weaker than his peak Dao integration state. Based on this point, Hongjun invited Luo Ho to come with him. To put it bluntly, he didn't want Luo Ho to take advantage of the situation if he and Qin Shujian were to fight to the death. But now, Hongjun was stunned to find that Qin Shujian's strength had become stronger. Without using his own trump card, his strength could actually suppress both him and Luo Ho. Even if he and Luo Ho weren't in their peak state, they had recovered a little after a few years of recuperation. Besides, Luo Ho's strength couldn't be underestimated since he could compete with him. The two of them joined forces. Even if he wasn't in his peak state, to be honest, in the first era, there were only a few people who could contend with him. To be able to gain the upper hand, Hongjun could only think of one name. Pango. That was the true supreme expert in the first era. Even after he had reached Dao integration, there was still a gap between him and that existence. Now, Hongjun seemed to see Panga's shadow in Qin Shujian. I didn't expect the Qin Emperor to succeed in this era instead of reaching this step in the third era. Rumor has it that above the Dao fruit realm is the immortal saint realm. If I'm not wrong, the Qin Emperor has already stepped into the immortal saint realm. Immortal saint realm?
Qin Shujian was stunned.
It was the first time he heard of this realm. For several eras, Dao fruit was recognized as the peak of the realm. Unless one transcended the universe, it was absolutely impossible to make a breakthrough. However, what realm was the immortal saint realm that Hongjun mentioned? Regarding this point, Qin Shujian wasn't the only one who was puzzled. Even Luo Ho was stunned. Obviously, he had never heard of the immortal saint realm. In the first era, there were 3,000 god fiends. Among them, demon god Panga dominated the world and stood at the top of the universe. In order to distinguish himself from the other Dao fruit existences, he created a realm called the Immortal Saint Realm. As the name suggests, only those who step into that realm have the qualifications to be immortal. Even if the era is destroyed, they will still be intact. Hongjun's expression was calm as he explained slowly. Instead of telling Qin Shujian, it was better to tell Luo Ho how difficult it was to deal with the person in front of him. For the Immortal Saint Realm, he only learned about it after becoming a Dao ancestor and taking control of the heavenly Dao. Chapter 1102.
Pango.
Immortal Saint Realm. Luo Ho's mind was shaken. When he looked at Qin Shujian again, his eyes were different. What was the Immortal Saint Realm? Before this, he didn't know much.
But
to Luo Ho, the two words Pangu reverberated like thunder. The strongest of the 3,000 fiend gods. The supreme existence that suppressed the first era. Even a Dao fruit could only bow down in front of him.
it could be said that,
as long as it was a Dao fruit of the first era, it was very clear how powerful Panga was. That was a supreme existence. Even at his peak, Luo Ho fled at the sight of him. He didn't expect. Qin Shujian in front of him had grown to the same level as Pangu. If that was the case, then if he joined forces with Hongjun, would they be able to contend against the other party? For a moment, Luo Ho regretted his impulsive decision just now. However, he also understood. At this time, it was useless to regret. Since they had already started, there was no turning back. No matter what, they had to determine a winner today. Immortal Saint Realm. Qin Shujian thought in his heart. After hearing Hongjun's words, he finally understood what kind of existence the Immortal Saint Realm was.
To put it bluntly,
the Immortal Saint Realm was actually the Dao Fruit Realm. It was just that Pangu separated himself from other Dao fruits to distinguish the difference between himself and other Dao fruits. But to be serious, he had to be careful. There was no big difference between the Immortal Saint Realm and Dao fruit. Of course, there were differences. The most obvious difference was the difference in strength. A Dao fruit that could step into the Immortal Saint Realm was qualified to suppress ordinary Dao fruits. At this point, Qin Shujian also had a clear understanding of his own strength. However, there was definitely a difference in the Immortal Saint Realm. He was not sure that he would be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with Pangu of the first era. Moreover, Hongjun in front of him was a Dao ancestor who could control the heavenly Dao at his peak. Even if his strength was not at the Immortal Saint Realm, it was not far from it. If it was Dao integration, it was very likely that his strength had also stepped into the Immortal Saint Realm. While the few of them were conversing, Their attacks did not stop for even half a breath's time. Terrifying power wreaked havoc, shattering the void within hundreds of millions of miles. I'm very curious. How did the Qin Emperor grow to such a level in just a few years? Or was the Qin Emperor hiding his strength from the start? Hongjun asked the question in his heart. He really didn't understand. Where did Qin Shujian get the qualifications to step into the immortal saint realm? One had to know. Over the past several epochs, there had been many Dao fruits, but only Pangu had managed to break through to the immortal saint realm, even if it was him. At their peak, even if they did not reach the immortal saint realm, they would still be some distance away from the immortal saint realm. Qin Shujian said, "There are some questions that should be left to the Dao ancestor himself." As soon as he finished speaking, the Scatterlight Sword unleashed boundless sword qi that tore through space and time. Seeing this, Hongjuan's expression changed slightly. The Pangu banner expanded in the wind. Sword qi swept through the void and bombarded the endless sword qi. It was also a connate cardinal treasure. There wasn't much difference between the two. However, Qin Shujian was stronger now. With his support, the sword qi unleashed by the Scatterlight Sword was even more terrifying. After a long time, the sword qi collapsed. Hongjun did not retreat. He waved his sleeve, and a yellow pagoda flew out from his sleeve. Endless yellow qi hung down, and no matter how the sword qi bombarded it, it withstood it firmly. The dark yellow pagoda of heaven and earth. Qin Shujian raised his eyebrows when he saw the pagoda. It was a supreme treasure. He was also very familiar with it. It was one of the supreme treasures of the Taiqing holy man. Now it was in Hongjuan's hands. It's rumored that the dark yellow pagoda of heaven and earth has unparalleled defense. Today, I'll see if this supreme treasure is really as rumored. Qin Shujian's expression was solemn. With a thought, the blood of 1,000 mountains in a sea of consciousness landed on his left hand. Saber in his left hand, and sword in his right hand. Both supreme treasures were at the level of connate cardinal treasures. Instantly, the saber qi broke through the air, and the sword qi tore the sky apart. A shocking amount of killing power gathered together and slammed onto the heaven and earth qi.
Crack.
Even the dark yellow qi couldn't withstand the attacks of the two forces. However, the moment the dark yellow qi was destroyed, Hongjun took out the creation jade disc. The rules of the Dao turned into a torrent and destroyed both the saber qi and the sword qi. On the other side, Luo Ho's attack had arrived. The god-slaying spear was mainly used for killing, and its killing power was monstrous. It wasn't something that ordinary supreme treasures could compare to. In the face of such an attack, Qin Shujian didn't panic. He slashed down with his long saber and destroyed the killing power. In the void outside the region, the battle between the three of them continued. Qin Shujian didn't use too many supreme treasures. He only used the blood of 1,000 mountains and the Scatterlight Sword to suppress the two of them. No matter how fierce their attacks were, they couldn't cause too much trouble. For hundreds of thousands of years, the evolution of his inner world allowed his strength to improve by leaps and bounds. It wasn't a real fight. Qin Shujian wasn't sure what level his strength had reached. Until now, he came to a realization. It turned out that he had grown to an absolute height. This is troublesome. Hongjuan's heart gradually sank. Although the two of them were only slightly at a disadvantage now, it seemed that there was no chance of a winner. However, the longer they delayed, the more the gap would slowly widen. Until the end, that was when they would be defeated. Once they were defeated, there would definitely be a lot of trouble. Although it wouldn't be to the point of death, the dojo that he had set up in the great wide world would also be affected. The current situation, the Dao integration stage, was the only path he could take. It didn't match the Dao. They would definitely lose. If it was the Dao integration, it was hard to say who would win or lose. After making a decision, Hongjuan's aura soared, and his mind triggered the arrival of the rules in the universe. Dao integration. When Luo Ho sensed that the power around him had soared, he immediately retreated. In his eyes, there was no emotion in Hongjuan's eyes, only extreme indifference. He was like a high and mighty heavenly Tao looking down on all living beings. An extremely terrifying Tao rune was circulating around his body. At this moment, this Tao ancestor had become the incarnation of the Tao. Tao integration? Well, let me see the true power of a Tao ancestor. Qin Shujian's expression was solemn. He wasn't afraid, only excited. After Tao integration, Hongjun was very strong. However, he wouldn't be much weaker than him. If he could suppress Hongjun, who had undergone Tao integration, then the situation in the Great Thousand World would be easily resolved. At this moment, Hongjun had already succeeded in Tao integration. When he punched out, the rules of the universe appeared, and the endless void disappeared. Chapter 1103. Tao Integration. Qin Shujian spat out 2 words, his heart full of fighting spirit. Tao Integration. He finally saw Hongjun's real means. If he could suppress Hongjun, who was in the Tao integration state, then there would be no problem. Immediately, Qin Shujian took out Zhou Tian star map. Zhou Tian star formation was instantly set up in the void, the target of the formation. But it was not Hongjun. It was Luo Ho. The stars in the sky fell, and the river of stars broke through the sky. Luo Ho's expression changed, and the god-killing spear burst out with extreme sharpness, trying to destroy the formation. However, when the god-killing spear was about to break the formation, Qin Shujian placed the Sanhua sword and Qian Shanxue in the formation. Instantly, the power of Zhou Tian star formation increased greatly. As a formation, if there was a powerful supreme treasure as the needle eye, then the power of the formation could be greatly increased. Sanhua and Qian Shanxue, they were all at the level of Khanate supreme treasures. In addition, Zhou Tian star map was also a supreme treasure comparable to a Khanate supreme treasure. In this way, the Zhou Tian star formation set up by the 3 Khanate supreme treasures was simply too powerful. Even with Luo Ho's strength and the god-killing spear in his hand, it was not possible to break the formation in a short time. After setting up the formation and besieging Luo Ho, Qin Shujian looked at the torrent of rules bombarding him and also punched out. Boom! The 2 destructive forces collided and destroyed the void. If someone could enter the river of time now, they would find that a huge black hole had appeared in the river of time. Everything close to the black hole. They would all be swallowed up.
Fight.
Fight. Qin Shujian felt the strong pressure from Hongjun, and the fighting spirit in his heart boiled. The power of heaven and earth contained in his body burst out. Every punch was thrown out. It could shatter the rules of 10,000 Tao. Looking at Hongjun again. After Tao integration, the other party seemed to have abandoned all emotions. At the same time, his strength increased dramatically. He also entered a state of absolute rationality. The current him, Shiran, was the embodiment of Tao. The laws of the universe coiled around his body. When the terrifying aura leaked out, it could suppress the world for eternity. As the Panga banner waved, the innate sword Qi transformed into chaotic sword Qi. When the chaotic sword Qi blasted out, everything that came into contact with the chaotic sword Qi was devoured. This was true destruction. Even a Tao fruit cultivator could perish in the face of the chaotic sword Qi. Qin Shujian had a very strong sense of danger when the chaotic sword Qi was about to hit him. However, he had no fear. He was still fighting with his physical body.
Boom. Boom. Boom.
The chaotic sword Qi came crashing down and devoured everything in its path. Qin Shujian's body trembled as a chaotic power wrapped around his arm. Even his near-immortal body could not withstand the corrosion of the chaotic power and began to crumble. But, very soon, a surge of tyrannical power surged through his body. The chaotic sword Qi on his arm was instantly dispersed. A cracked body. He also recovered instantly.
Then,
Hongjun waved the Panga banner, and more chaotic sword Qi swept over. The chaotic sword Qi covered the sky and the earth, and it made the whole universe tremble violently as if it couldn't withstand such a terrifying power. Seeing this, Qin Shu Jian instantly communicated with his inner world, and time came to a standstill. In his inner world, the cultivations of all living beings were instantly extracted. At that moment, the void was silently destroyed. Qin Shu Jian, whose strength had skyrocketed, pressed out with one hand. All the chaotic sword qi were destroyed. The universe also shook crazily, and the void was pushed back like a wave. Hong Jun's thought flickered. The fortune jade disc appeared. All the laws gathered on the fortune rain butterfly. A terrifying power condensed, and a domain formed by the laws of the universe suddenly descended. I said, all the powers perish. Hong Jun pointed at Qin Shu Jian and said indifferently. Invisibly, a mysterious power descended as if to disintegrate Qin Shu Jian's power. However, it had no effect. In the face of absolute power, any means were powerless. Boom. All the laws collapsed. The fortune jade disc wailed and trembled. This powerful supreme treasure shone with boundless brilliance, as if it was unable to withstand such an attack. However, the fortune jade disc was a top treasure after all. Although Qin Shujian's power was strong, it was impossible for him to destroy it with a single blow. At the same time as the power was destroyed, Hong Jun had the fortune jade disc above his head. He held the heaven and earth black-yellow pagoda in one hand and the Panga banner in the other. The power of all the treasures was activated, and a vast power came crushing down. Qin Shu Jian was not afraid. He clenched his right fist and suddenly punched out. Any power that was touched was shattered and annihilated in front of the fist. One power to break all laws. In the hundreds of thousands of years of evolution in the inner world, Qin Shu Jian had gone further and further on this path. No matter how amazing Hong Jun's means were, he broke it with one punch. Boom, while the two were fighting. Godslayer's transformation had never stopped. The stone fragments that had existed for hundreds of millions of years had almost all fallen off. The divine light emitted was also getting stronger and stronger. The void that was affected was annihilated inch by inch. Transformation. 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 Godslayer was now completely immersed in that mysterious power. He felt as if he had been reborn. That power. It was not comparable to the past at all. After an unknown period of time, a saber chime rang out, and in an instant, it spread throughout the universe. All the creatures in the vast thousand domains instinctively raised their heads and looked in the direction of the void. There was shock and confusion on their faces. At the same time, the sound of the saber chime was also transmitted to the depths of the universe. Somewhere, that place was a field of primal chaos. An imposing figure wielding a giant axe was in the midst of an endless battle. Around the stalwart figure, there were many powerful beings. These beings, they were joining forces to besiege the expert. However, the expert with the stalwart figure was extremely powerful. No matter how those powerful beings besieged him, he did not retreat half a step. When the giant axe chopped down, one by one, the beings were annihilated and returned to the void. As far as the eye could see, there was almost no end to those powerful beings at a glance. In comparison, although the expert with the stalwart figure was powerful, he was in an absolute disadvantage in terms of numbers. At this moment, a saber chime rang out. The expert's chopping motion with the giant axe paused, and a look of surprise appeared on his face. It seems that another immortal weapon has been born in the universe. While he was talking to himself, more enemies pounced on him. The expert focused his mind and continued to kill all the approaching enemies. Chapter 1104. When the Godslayer successfully transformed. In the originally empty void, there was suddenly a colorful divine light, as if to congratulate the birth of the magic weapon. It was a vast vision. It also attracted the attention of Hong Jun and Qin Shu Jian. It seems that it's time to end it. Qin Shu Jian felt the success of the Godslayer's transformation and smiled. Until now, He had gained the upper hand. Although Hongjun was very strong after the unification, he was still a little weaker than him after he used all his trump cards.
And
At this time, Hongjun still hadn't recovered to his heyday.
defeat.
It was just a matter of time. If the opponent didn't have a supreme treasure like the Jade Butterfly of Fate, the battle would have been over. With a thought, the God Slayer, which had just transformed, flew through the air. The long saber was in his hand. The original essence of the stone saber had long disappeared. The long saber was crystal clear, like a magic weapon made of some kind of ice crystal. The sharpness of the saber was restrained. At first glance, it looked like a good-looking decoration.
But
Occasionally, when there was saber energy lingering, it emitted a destructive aura. Slash. Qin Shujian poured power, holding the God Slayer, and suddenly slashed forward. The destructive saber light burst out. The void was being destroyed. The river of time was breaking. Everything was heading toward destruction in front of the saber light. Sensing the threat of the God Slayer, Hongjun was alarmed. Without thinking, he fully activated the supreme treasure to protect himself. As for dodging, it was impossible, because the saber light had already locked onto him. The dark yellow pagoda of heaven and earth hung down thousands of dark yellow chi, trying to block the saber light.
but
When the saber light slashed down, all the dark yellow chi was destroyed. It stayed behind. The saber light hit the pagoda hard. The pagoda, which was a natural supreme treasure, couldn't withstand the attack. After a crack appeared, it was sent flying. The dark yellow pagoda of heaven and earth was damaged. As the owner of the supreme treasure, Hongjun's mind was also slightly affected. At this moment, Qin Shujian slashed the second time. The same destruction. It was equally unstoppable. The precepts of myriad Daos were shattered, and the creation jade disc, a top-notch treasure, was no match for the God Slayer. At that moment, an imperceptible crack appeared on the good fortune jade disc that was on the verge of metamorphosis. However, such a crack had appeared. As a result, the might of the fortune rain butterfly decreased significantly. Destroy. Qin Shujian spat out a single word as he infused all his power into the God Slayer. The God Slayer's sharpness soared, and the endless sound of the blade reverberated throughout the universe. The power of destruction quietly condensed. In the next breath, the long saber slashed down. The so-called indestructible long river of time finally broke apart completely in the face of this saber. This saber, he had truly transcended time and space. The good fortune jade disc only resisted for a moment before it broke into two halves. The remaining sharpness slashed towards Hongjun. The rules of the universe that surrounded Hongjun completely disintegrated in front of the blade. The blade light directly slashed Hongjun's body.
boom.
Hongjun's body flew out, and a large amount of blood gushed out from his wounds. At the same time, the other party's Dao integration state was also forced out. At this moment, Luo Ho, who was trapped in Zhou Tian's star map, also managed to break out of the array. When he broke out, he happened to see Hongjun being sent flying by the saber. Before Luo Ho could react, Qin Shujian glanced at him from the corner of his eyes. The God Slayer also slashed out a saber, and the saber light pointed straight at the other party. Not good. That destructive aura caused Luo Ho to be shocked. He didn't even have time to think, and could only use the God-slaying spear to resist. In the end, the powerful force, through the God-slaying spear, caused the demon ancestor's body to be seriously injured, and his aura also declined. I admit defeat. Seeing that Qin Shujian was about to slash out a second time, Luo Ho simply surrendered. Admit defeat. Qin Shujian's eyes were indifferent, but he didn't slash out a second time. Then he looked at Hongjun. Hongjun, do you want to fight again? The current Dao ancestor. He was no longer as calm as before. His Daoist robe was torn, and the wounds on his body were healing bit by bit. However, that destructive saber aura was not so easy to disperse. No matter how hard he tried, he still couldn't really disperse the saber aura. Hearing that, Hongjun smiled bitterly. Emperor Qin is better. This poor Taoist admits defeat. When he said the word admit defeat, he seemed to have aged tens of millions of years. Ever since he became a Tao ancestor, no one had ever been able to defeat him.
But now,
Hong Jun had to admit that Qin Shujian's strength was stronger than his. Especially after the god-slaying saber had successfully transformed, the treasure in his hands was not something that other treasures could compare to. Hong Jun also had to admit, the current him couldn't compete with this Emperor of Heaven. The war is imminent. I don't want to lose too much internal friction, but if there is a next time, I won't hold back and will definitely kill all of you. After Qin Shujian said coldly, he left with the Godslayer. After he left, Hong Jun and Luo Ho looked at each other, each smiled bitterly in their hearts, and quietly went back. Heavenly Abyss. Inside the Demon Palace, Luo Ho stroked the saber mark on the god-killing spear with a bitter smile on his face. Big loss. This time it was really a big loss. Not only did he offend Qin Shujian, but he also couldn't stop the Godslayer from transforming successfully. Not only that, he was also seriously injured, and even the god-killing spear was damaged. Especially the latter. He had been nurturing the god-killing spear for tens of thousands of years, and was qualified to transform. In the end, he was injured in front of the Godslayer and lost a lot of his foundation. If he wanted to transform again, he didn't know how long it would take. Moreover, the saber in his body still had saber aura left. That destructive saber aura, even Luo Ho, felt very troublesome. Troublesome? He couldn't help but smile bitterly. This time, he really went for wool and came back shorn. Originally, he and Qin Shujian could be considered allies. Even if they didn't treat each other sincerely, there wouldn't be any conflict under normal circumstances. But this time, joining forces with Hong Jun would undoubtedly break this alliance. It would be impossible to rely on Qin Shujian's power in the future. When he thought of how the other party suppressed him and Hong Jun, who had merged with the Tao, on his own, Luo Ho was shocked. Such strength. Perhaps only Pangu could stand shoulder to shoulder. Pangu of the first era was the peak that all Tao fruits couldn't reach. Now another peak has appeared in this era. It can be said that the times create heroes. Luo Ho sighed deeply. For countless years, every Tao fruit had been improving, but he was the only one who hadn't. It was really awkward. Chapter 1105. In the inner hall of the Heavenly Palace. Qin Shujian returned here. At the same time, the still time of the inner world also resumed. But the difference was, after all the power returned, many creatures in the inner world were directly turned into ashes. Such a change made him frown. It seems that I can't keep using the power of the inner world as a trump card. Otherwise, if I consume too much power during the battle, I won't be able to return enough power, and some creatures will be directly killed. Extracting the power of the inner world. It could greatly improve his strength. However, the disadvantage was also very obvious. Qin Shujian had discovered such a problem when he first extracted the power of the inner world. But at that time, he just extracted it and didn't really use it. Therefore, not many creatures died because of this reason. But this time was different. The battle with Hong Jun, who was after Tao integration, lasted for a long time and consumed a lot of power. Such a consumption. It was something that many creatures couldn't bear. When everything was restored, it was inevitable that some creatures would die. Creatures would die. It would cause the power of the inner world to decrease. It could be said that this method was no different from killing the goose that laid the golden eggs. Unless it's absolutely necessary, I can't draw on the power of my inner world to fight anymore. However, in the long run, my strength will decrease a lot. But judging from the current situation, there won't be anyone who can force me to that point for the time being. Qin Shujian thought to himself. After extracting the power of the inner world, he was much stronger than Hong Jun, who was after Tao integration. If he didn't extract the power, he wouldn't be much weaker than Hong Jun. It was just that Hong Jun had a lot of supreme treasures in his hands that balanced this power. However, the God Slayer had successfully transformed. With a supreme treasure that had successfully transformed, it could completely crush those connate supreme treasures. In this way, the gap in supreme treasures would no longer exist. If he fought with Hong Jun again, even if Hong Jun entered the state of Dao integration, Qin Shujian was confident that he could use the power of the God Slayer to directly beat Hong Jun out of the state of Dao integration. And Hong Jun was also seriously injured after taking that slash. His strength will definitely decrease, and he will be less of a threat in the future. Qin Shujian thought of that saber. Even if the other party was a Dao ancestor, he would definitely not feel good. It was only because the other party had a deep foundation that he was not in danger of dying. If it had been a newly ascended Dao fruit cultivator, he might have really died under that blade.
Thinking of this,
He released the god-slaying saber from his sea of consciousness. A long saber appeared. He transformed into his own body. Emperor of Heaven. You've successfully transformed. I wonder if you've obtained anything after the transformation? Qin Shujian asked in a deep voice. Any existence that broke through their limits would be able to sense something from the unseen world. Hearing this, Godslayer looked through his memories and shook his head. Emperor of Heaven, I don't have many memories. I only know what level it is after breaking through the limit. That's all. What level will 9 tribulations Zubing reach after that? Qin Shujian asked. The words 10 tribulations Zubing appeared in his mind, but he quickly dismissed this idea. After the transformation, the other party was already very different from the normal Zubing, and he had completely abandoned the body of Zubing. It was obviously wrong to say that he was 10 tribulations Zubing. Godslayer said, that level is called immortal. Immortal? Qin Shujian's eyes changed slightly. Immortal again. He heard about the immortal saint realm from Hong Jun. And now, he heard the word immortal from Godslayer.
Now,
Qin Shujian wondered if the word immortal had anything to do with Pengu, or if he was the one who created it. If that was the case, then it meant that Pengu also had an immortal weapon. Only in this way. Only he was qualified to name this realm. After I successfully transformed, Huan Yu sent a message from the underworld, telling me that I am now at the immortal realm. Godslayer didn't know what Qin Shujian was thinking, and just answered. Hearing this, Qin Shujian understood. It seems that the existence who named this realm must also have an immortal weapon.
Then,
he looked at Godslayer again. Can you still draw on the power of faith to strengthen yourself? Yes. Godslayer nodded. After I became immortal, I am no longer limited to the power of faith. I can draw on any power to strengthen myself. Before he got rid of the identity of Zubing, although he could also draw on other powers to improve himself. But that kind of improvement was not directly given by the power of faith. But it was different now. After becoming immortal, the improvement of any power was the same. If, before the transformation, the power of faith gave a 10% improvement, then the other powers gave a 1% improvement.
Now,
the power of faith gave a 10% improvement, and the other powers also gave a 10% improvement. In this way, there wouldn't be so many restrictions on the subsequent strength enhancement. Well, if you need anything to improve in the future, you can tell me directly. I can satisfy you, and I will try my best to satisfy you. Qin Shujian nodded with satisfaction. He had already seen the power of the immortal weapon, but it was still the same sentence. The Tao was endless. He always believed that there might be a higher level of weapon above the immortal weapon, but he couldn't get in touch with it now. But no matter what. Anyway, as long as he kept improving Godslayer, it would be enough. When the God-slaying saber officially leveled up, a few of the player families also showed many strange phenomena. Strange. Why did the heaven and earth spirit chi increase so much? My cultivation seems to be breaking through. Everyone found that the heaven and earth spirit chi, which was not very rich, had increased greatly at this time. All the cultivators who were in the bottleneck directly broke through to the next realm. 9 Moons Great World. In Yi Hong's mind, Tyrant God Knight's tone was a little excited. The Spirit Chi Revival. This is the Spirit Chi Revival. The Spirit Chi Revival. The 9 Moons Great World has always had Spirit Chi, right? After hearing the words in his mind, Yi Hong asked the doubts in his heart. Hearing that, Tyrant God Knight explained patiently, "It's different. That's because you didn't experience the grand event 100,000 years ago. This time is completely incomparable to the 9 Moons Great World at that time. Since the heaven and earth went to decay, the Spirit Chi began to decline. But now, the Spirit Chi is beginning to recover." At this point, Tyrant God Knight's tone began to become serious. "If I'm not wrong, this is very likely to represent the arrival of the next great calamity. The Spirit Chi Revival is the last fight of the heaven and earth, unwilling to die." Chapter 1106. The sudden recovery of the spirit aura. It often represented something unusual. No matter what, Overlord God Venerable was once a true immortal powerhouse. He knew such a situation in the world was not necessarily a good thing, although the recovery of the spirit aura was indeed something to be excited about. However, if the price of recovery was the arrival of a great calamity, then the recovery of the spirit aura would be a disaster.
Don't worry about it. Just do your thing,
Qin Er said lightly. His words made Yi Hong feel at ease. That's right. So, what if the spirit aura had recovered? The person in his sea of consciousness had a great background. The current change was probably not beyond the other party's expectations. In that case, he didn't have to think too much. In the end,
he was only a celestial now.
A celestial powerhouse was considered a powerhouse in the current 9 Moons Great World. However, Yi Hong understood. A celestial was just an ant in front of a true powerhouse. He didn't want to become an ant, so it was necessary to work hard to improve himself. In the sea of consciousness, Overlord God Venerable asked carefully, "Senior, could it be that you have already expected the recovery of the spirit aura?" Qin Er's indifference made him think of something. As for the origin of the senior, he was also curious from the bottom of his heart. However, curiosity was curiosity. Tyrant God Knight didn't dare to ask himself too many questions. Every time he spoke, he had to think it over and over again. Qin Er heard this and glanced at him indifferently. That was just an ordinary glance, but it made Overlord God Venerable's heart jump. "You don't have to think too much. Do your own thing well. If the time is right, I will naturally tell you." "Yes, Senior." Overlord God Venerable didn't dare to ask again. At the same time, Qin Shu Jian also received messages from his clones. Spirit Aura Recovery. His expression was solemn. The recovery of Spirit Aura was not a simple matter, and it happened at this time. Qin Shu Jian was basically certain that the recovery of Spirit Aura in the player worlds was largely related to the transformation of Godslayer. Hong Jun was right about one thing. The Godslayer's transformation would alert the heavenly axioms of other worlds. An immortal-level divine weapon. It had already touched upon the true level of power. Such a divine weapon was born. To the various worlds, this was not a small threat. Therefore, the current recovery of Spirit Chi was, to a certain extent, an emergency measure for each world. Spiritual Chi has recovered. The dormant heavenly Tao should have officially awakened. Qin Shujian's face was cold and stern. Until now, the heavenly axiom of the player worlds was in a state of deep sleep. It was very simple. Every player's world was in a state of near extinction. The heavenly Tao there. He could only fall into a deep slumber to preserve his strength. If the heavenly Tao awakens, if he consumed his own power, it would speed up the destruction of the world. Unless it was absolutely necessary, the slumbering heavenly Tao would never awaken. Now that Spirit Chi was recovering, it meant that the sleeping heavenly Tao was about to wake up. It also meant that it was almost time for those player families to go all out. At the same time, in the sky above the boundless world, Purple clouds appeared all over the sky. All the creatures of the myriad races looked up at the purple clouds. The purple clouds of heaven and earth. This was not the first time such a phenomenon had appeared. Every time such a phenomenon appeared, it meant that a powerhouse was born. Therefore, when they saw the purple clouds spreading, many people secretly guessed what kind of powerhouse had appeared this time to cause such a commotion. The purple clouds are vast, not much weaker than the last time. It seems that another ancient powerhouse has appeared, where the heavenly court was. Xiao Qingfeng's expression was very complicated. When he had just awakened his memory, he thought that he was that ancient powerhouse. After he had awakened his memory, he thought that he could sweep the world and surpass the peak of the ancient times. However, reality gave Xiao Qingfeng a head-on blow. He was shocked to find that he, who had been reborn from the ancient times, was not the strongest existence in the world, nor was he the one with the most powerful talent. Among the myriad races, there were a few people who were not weaker than him. Even if they were stronger than him, they were still existences. In the end, there were even powerhouses who were older than him. The various thoughts in his heart had been completely crushed by the emergence of one ancient expert after another. Xiao Qingfeng sighed deeply. Something big is going to happen. At his level, he would also have a sixth sense in the unseen world. Now that more and more powerhouses had returned, it was impossible to say that there was no purpose. However, Xiao Qingfeng had no way to deduce too many things. No, it seems that I have to take a trip to the River of Time. He was a little restless. If he did not understand this matter, he would not be able to calm his turbulent mind. After making a decision, Xiao Qingfeng directly entered the River of Time. Now, he, with the foundation of his previous life, coupled with the rich spiritual energy of the boundless world, he had already successfully entered the ranks of the upper three true immortals. It was not a big problem to enter the River of Time. Where is this? Xiao Qingfeng looked at the surrounding scene and could not help but be a little confused. In his line of sight, he saw that in the void, there were only scattered water droplets left. It was like a small puddle of different sizes on a dry land. Images flashed through it, making him understand that this was the River of Time. Why did the River of Time become like this? What exactly happened? Compared to the vast River of Time that he had expected, the River of Time in front of him was completely out of Xiao Qingfeng's expectations. It was not that he had never entered the River of Time. However, when he entered the River of Time in the past, it did not match the scene in front of him at all. He suppressed the shock in his heart. Xiao Qingfeng looked at the upper reaches of the River of Time. At the end of those idle water droplets, there was a hollow black there, devouring everything that could be devoured. Just by looking down, he seemed to feel that his soul was about to be sucked in. A warning rose in his heart. Xiao Qingfeng suddenly retracted his gaze, and there was a look of shock in his eyes. So powerful, that hollow black was like a vortex of destruction. Even with his strength, he almost could not withstand a glance. It was predictable. To be able to break the River of Time to this extent, there must be an extremely terrifying powerhouse who made a move to cause such a scene. Behind that hollow black, all the time that existed, in Xiao Qingfeng's opinion, was very likely to have been completely destroyed. P.S. It's almost over. I hope everyone can support the original version. Chidian Chinese Networks, I'm really decent. Thank you very much. Chapter 1107. The River of Time that Xiao Qingfeng had entered was only the River of Time in the vast thousand domains. He was not sure if the River of Time in the universe was the same as it was now. At this moment, the Eastern god of war had already thought of the great battle that had happened before. What kind of power could destroy the River of Time like this? Then, only existences above the perfected immortal realm were qualified to do so. The River of Time had been destroyed to this extent. If the River of Time in the universe was the same, then all living beings in the universe would have no past at all.
There was no past.
It was not an achievement that was achieved by reaching a certain realm. It was because the river of time in the past had been erased by the powerhouses. In that case, the past of all living beings would also become something that could not be seen. As a result, it was actually a good thing. Without the past, there would be no powerhouses who could return to the time when the powerhouses were weak to kill them. Retracting his gaze from the past, Xiao Qingfeng looked at the scene in the future. It entered his eyes. He was shocked again. Unlike the empty darkness of the past, the scene in the future was only chaos. It was invisible, as far as the eye could see. Not to mention seeing the clues of the future, even a corner of it could not be done. As expected, there will be a shocking event in the future. When he saw the chaos, Xiao Qingfeng confirmed his guess. The scene of chaos. It meant that the future was shrouded in a layer of fog. In the fog, there might be a great calamity, or there might be some earth-shattering event. But no matter what, the future of chaos would definitely not be peaceful. During the great calamity of the ancient demon abyss, I could still barely peek at a corner of the future. It would not be like now, complete chaos. What happens in the future will definitely be many times more terrifying than the great calamity of the ancient demon abyss. Whether we perfected immortals can survive or not is still a question. Xiao Qingfeng thought to himself. He did not try to step into the scene of chaos, because the chaos seemed calm, but in fact, it could melt everything. Not to mention that he had just stepped into the realm of a 7th-level immortal. Even a 9th-level immortal or a half-step Dao fruit powerhouse would probably die if they forced their way into the chaos. Xiao Qingfeng firmly believed in the danger that came from the unseen world. He took a deep look at the chaos. He left the river of time. Within the war god temple, Nameless and the sky-breaking halberd were already waiting there. When he saw Xiao Qingfeng, he immediately asked, "Sir Immortal, what did you see in the river of time?" It was the sky-breaking halberd that asked. Although Wu Ming did not speak, his eyes were filled with curiosity. He wanted to know as well, what exactly did the other party see? Xiao Qingfeng was silent for a moment before he said, "When I entered the river of time, I saw that it was broken. The past was swallowed by a black void while the future was enveloped by chaos. Perhaps it wouldn't be long before a heaven-shaking calamity appeared in the world. This calamity will be many times more terrifying than the demonic abyss calamity of the primordial age. Even you and I have a chance of dying in this calamity." The past that had been devoured. A future shrouded in chaos. The sky-breaking halberd and Wu Ming's expressions changed. This news. It was clearly beyond their expectations. Wu Ming stood rooted to the ground for a long time before he slowly said, "The past has been devoured and the future cannot be seen. Chaos often represents destruction. Perhaps it is, as you said, that there will be a calamity in the future." What kind of calamity is more terrifying than the demonic abyss calamity? Does the Emperor of Heaven know? The sky-breaking halberd also felt a lot of pressure. Hearing that, Xiao Qingfeng shook his head. The Emperor of Heaven is extremely powerful. He will definitely know about the changes in the future. And as far as I know, the calamity in the future may be related to the era. The era. The two divine weapons were shocked again. At this moment, Xiao Qingfeng continued, "The Emperor of Heaven once said that there were other eras before this era. It can be seen that eras will also be destroyed. Now in the universe, the only threat is the demonic abyss. But the demonic abyss has already been destroyed. Logically speaking, with the current strength of the myriad tribes, there shouldn't be any calamity that can threaten them. After thinking about it, the only possibility is that it has something to do with the end of the era." Thoughts raced in his mind. From the current signs, it was very likely that the future of chaos was related to the end of the era. However, these were only Xiao Qingfeng's own guesses. For the time being, there was no 100% evidence to prove it. However, he was certain. Qin Shu Jian definitely knew what he didn't know. As long as he went to ask, he would be able to get the answer. At this moment, the purple gas in the sky was still surging. The momentum was getting greater and greater, as if it was welcoming a supreme existence. Then, Another golden light of the great sun appeared from the west, reflecting the purple gas in the sky. This golden light seems a little familiar. Among the humans, Emperor Zhao looked at the golden light that appeared in the west and frowned slightly. The golden light was vast and almost occupied half of the sky. However, if one looked carefully, one could still see that the golden light was slightly inferior to the purple gas. In the golden light, he seemed to have seen a familiar aura. All of a sudden, Emperor Zhao looked in the direction of the North Continent. Ancient Buddha clan. He finally remembered what this aura was similar to. The golden light that appeared now was exactly the same as the aura of the ancient Buddha clan. However, Emperor Zhao remembered. The ancient Buddha clan had been destroyed by Qin Shi Jian long ago. All the members of the ancient Buddha clan were also killed. It was impossible for the members of the ancient Buddha clan to exist in this world.
But now,
he felt the aura of the ancient Buddha clan, and looking at the golden light in the sky, the expert of the ancient Buddha clan who appeared was definitely not an ordinary person. Maybe it's not the ancient Buddha clan. It's just that the aura is somewhat similar. Emperor Zhao thought of something else. Now that he didn't see anything and just guessed based on the aura, there was no way to be completely sure. On the other side, when the vision of heaven and earth appeared, Qin Shi Jian had already left the heavenly palace. He stood in the layer of heaven and earth wind. The surrounding heaven and earth wind instantly calmed down, not daring to wreak havoc in front of the Emperor of Heaven.
to this.
Qin Shi Jian didn't care. The heaven and earth wind that could threaten perfected immortals was dispensable to him. What really caught his attention was, it was the purple gas in the sky and the vast golden light in front of him.
And right now,
He was standing at the intersection of the purple and golden light, silently waiting for something to come. After some time, the purple and golden light surged violently, and the void in front of him was silently torn apart. Chapter 11:08. On the purple cloud side, the sky cracked. A woman in a palace dress stepped out from it. Her skin was as white as snow, and her exquisite facial features seemed to be carved out of natural jade. She gave people a sense of otherworldly perfection. Under the palace dress, her aura was both ethereal and dignified, making people unable to bear the slightest blasphemy. At the same time, on the golden light side, the void also cracked. A golden lotus appeared, and a monk with drooping ears and shoulders sat cross-legged. There was a faint smile on his face, and there was a look of compassion in his eyes as if all living beings were suffering.
boom.
At this moment, Qin Shi Jian's body erupted with a terrifying aura that swept across the vast 1,000 domains in an instant. All the purple cloud and golden light disappeared at this moment. Whether it was the woman in the palace dress or the monk sitting cross-legged, they could not help but look stunned. When this aura swept across and shocked the world. In the purple cloud palace, Hong Jun looked at the purple cloud and golden light that were swept away and could not help but shake his head slightly with a complicated expression. If they don't have a conflict with the Qin Emperor, it will be fine. If they do, it will be troublesome. The two people who had appeared now. It had little to do with him. If the other party really angered Qin Shi Jian and was then suppressed by the other party, Hong Jun thought that he probably wouldn't help him. There was no other way. An expert of the immortal saint realm was too powerful. Even if the two who had just arrived and he and Luo Ho worked together, they might not be able to compete with the Qin Emperor. Unless he would be able to recover completely.
No.
Even if he recovered now, it was impossible for him to compete. After the God Slayer transformed, its sharpness was not something that other divine weapons could resist. Even the creation Jade Disc. Similarly, he would not be able to contend against that saber. Unless the creation Jade Disc can transform successfully, or I can step into the immortal saint realm without Dao integration, I will definitely not be his match. Hong Jun shook his head secretly. He did not understand how the other party had reached this step. He thought about how he had been searching for countless years and still could not step into the immortal saint realm. In the end, in this era, The other party had succeeded before him. I still have to think of a way to get the Taiji diagram. The Grand Pure One's item is definitely hidden there, but I didn't notice it before. Hong Jun's eyes turned cold at the thought of the Grand Pure One. He hunted geese all day long, only to be pecked in the eye by the geese. Initially, he thought that he had firmly grasped those few disciples in his hands. However, he did not expect that he was one step behind. Now that the Taiji diagram was in the hands of the Heavenly Court, it would not be easy for him to retrieve it. While Hong Jun was deep in thought, Luo Ho looked at the commotion in the sky with a faint smile, but he had no intention of showing himself. It was enough for him to be beaten up the last time. If he were to get beaten up again, he would have completely lost his mind. Go on, go on. It doesn't make sense that I'm the only one being beaten. You guys can also exchange blows with the Qin Emperor. In the astral wind layer, the woman in court dress and the monk were both stunned. They looked at Qin Shujian in front of them, not knowing what to say. My name is Qin Shujian, the current Emperor of Heaven of the Heavenly Court. If I am not wrong, you two must be the experts of the Buddhist faction and the hell of the First Era. Qin Shujian stood with his hands behind his back, his green shirt fluttering slightly. He gave off a transcendent aura. Heavenly Court, Emperor of Heaven. The woman and the monk exchanged glances and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Shortly after, the woman regained her graceful and dignified demeanor. She smiled faintly and said, I am Ping Xian. Greetings, Emperor Qin. I have long heard of your name. For you to be able to enter the cycle of reincarnation and build the hell, I am really impressed. Qin Shujian smiled. He had always had a good impression of Ping Xian. This was despite the fact that they had never met each other before. However, he had long heard about the things that Lin Fan had done. Ping Xian smiled faintly. You're too kind, Emperor Qin. I didn't expect that there would be an expert like you in this era. It's really surprising. If I'm not wrong, you've probably entered the Immortal Saint Realm. You have also heard of the Immortal Saint Realms? Qin Shujian was surprised, but he quickly reacted and couldn't help but laugh. I have been rude. With your status, it is not strange that you know about the Immortal Saint Realm. Hearing that, Goddess Ping Xian only smiled in response. On the other side, the monk seemed to have heard something unbelievable. He looked at Qin Shujian with even more shock in his eyes. When he saw Qin Shujian looking at him, he put his palms together. I am Sakya. Greetings, Qin Emperor. Buddha Sakya. You are too polite. Qin Shujian nodded in response. One would not hit a smiling person. Although he didn't have a good impression of Buddhism at this level, he rarely did things based on his senses. Buddha Sakya in front of him was also a Dao fruit level expert. Although he didn't attack, Qin Shujian could almost sense that the other party's strength was not weaker than Luo Ho's. Luo Ho didn't seem to have any prestige. Since his rebirth, he had been in a situation where he was beaten up. However, he had to see who could beat Luo Ho up. One was a Dao ancestor of the First Era, an existence comparable to the Immortal Saint Realm after Dao integration. Even if he didn't reach Dao integration, he wouldn't be much weaker than the Immortal Saint Realm at his peak. The other was himself. Therefore, Qin Shujian had never looked down on Rahu in the slightest. The other party was the demon ancestor. Although his strength wasn't the best among the Dao fruit level, it was still considered top-notch. For Buddha Sakya to be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with Luo Ho, one could imagine his strength. However, he could see through Buddha Sakya's strength, but he couldn't see much of the other person's strength. After a round of introductions, Qin Shujian said, Demon Ancestor Luo Ho has been reborn, and Dao Ancestor Hong Jun has also returned. Now the Demon Ancestor lives in Heavenly Abyss, and Dao Ancestor lives in Purple Heaven Ocean. Since the two of you have returned, I will arrange a place for you to go. The Demon Ancestor had been reborn. The Dao Ancestor had returned. The news that came out of Qin Shujian's mouth shocked the two of them once again. When Buddha Sakya heard this, he was about to say something. However, the other party had already spoken first, blocking his words. In order to avoid trouble, Goddess Pingxin will live in the fallen immortal realm in the future, which corresponds to the location of the heavenly court. If you want to open up the underworld in the future, it will be much more convenient. Qin Shujian said, and looked at Buddha Sakya again. The Buddhist sect will live in the North Continent in the future, which was originally the territory of the ancient Buddha clan. Speaking of which, the ancient Buddha clan is somewhat similar to the Buddhist sect. This place is suitable for the Buddha sect. From beginning to end, the two of them didn't even have time to say a few words before they were clearly arranged. When they came back to their senses, they happened to meet Qin Shujian's calm eyes. Chapter 1109. Emperor Qin. Buddha Sakya still wanted to say something. Instantly, he was locked by a terrifying aura. At that moment, a terrifying illusion rose in his heart, as if he would suffer a thunderous attack if he moved even the slightest bit. Ever since he reached the Tao fruit realm, Buddha Sakya had only sensed such might from the bodies of a handful of people. In the end, Buddha Sakya lowered his head and chanted the name of Buddha, then stopped talking. At the critical moment, he had to admit defeat, although they didn't really fight. However, a Tao fruit level powerhouse could predict a lot of things even if they used their subconscious perception. He was almost sure. If he fought with Qin Shujian, he would probably be suppressed on the spot. Since both the Tao ancestors and the demon ancestors were here, Buddha Sakya didn't want to be too impulsive. After he understood the situation, he would consider whether to take the next step. At this moment, after using his aura to intimidate Buddha Sakya, Qin Shujian said lightly, "I'm not discussing with you, I'm telling you this decision. In addition, the underworld and the Buddhist sect can preach in the thousands of clans, but they have to follow a rule. That is, Tao fruit realm experts can't use their divine powers in the territory. If anyone violates it, don't blame me for not showing mercy." Threatening words. He didn't hide it. However, neither Lady Pingxin nor Buddha Sakya objected to it. They knew their strength was inferior to the other party. Since they were inferior, then they shouldn't make a futile struggle. "I will abide by your words, Emperor Qin. Since the fallen immortal domain has been given to the underworld, I won't be polite." Goddess Pingxin smiled faintly and waved her hand gently. Heaven and earth shook. Tens of thousands of rays of light hung down from the astral wind and fell directly toward the fallen immortal domain. The cultivators who were originally in the fallen immortal domain all looked up at the falling rays of light. Everyone's expression was different. The rays of light fell. The space split. The city and the space below the fallen immortal realm were all cut out and disappeared into thin air. Then, the earth shook. The canyon below the fallen immortal domain cracked open. All the space that was cut out and the cities that were swept away were all moved toward the canyon. It was unknown how deep they went before they finally came to a halt. What's going on? What is this place? When the people in the city looked at their surroundings, they were all shocked. Furthermore, some powerhouses tried to communicate with the powerhouses of their own race, but they were blocked by something. There was no way to communicate at all. This discovery, undoubtedly, this was even more shocking. At this moment, in front of the city gate, there was an additional stone tablet. On the stone tablet, there were a few large and sinister words engraved on it. Fengdu. Fengdu City. Have any of you heard of Fengdu City? Those who saw the words Fengdu looked at each other in dismay. They searched through their memories, but they couldn't remember when there was a place called Fengdu City. The changes that had just occurred, and the scene in front of him. They were telling everyone that there was an extremely terrifying expert behind Necropolis. As for who that expert was for the time being, they didn't know. A human powerhouse shouted, "Don't panic. The fallen immortal domain is below the heavenly court. If there really is an expert, it will definitely be noticed by the Emperor of Heaven. The Emperor of Heaven hasn't made a move yet. It's very likely that he's not a threat to us." That's right. With the heavenly court around, who dares to be presumptuous? The other human powerhouses also nodded. For many humans, The two words, Emperor of Heaven, were the greatest religion. I am Goddess Pingxin. From today onwards, I will establish the Fengdu underworld. All living beings can enter Fengdu after they die and seek a chance to be reincarnated in the next life.
Goddess Pingxin.
Within Fengdu City, after everyone heard this name, their faces were filled with bewilderment and uncertainty. They were sure this was the first time they heard this name. However, the words just now contained supreme heavenly might, which made people instinctively feel reverence in their hearts.
Soon,
someone realized what was going on. Reincarnation? For the people of the great wide world, the word reincarnation was very unfamiliar. Because reincarnation had never existed, no one had heard of this name.
However,
when Goddess Pingxin said the word reincarnation, heaven and earth shook.
Wait.
If the underworld only allows dead spirits to enter, then what is going on with us now? Some powerhouses were shocked. According to Goddess Pingxin, the Fengdu underworld accepted dead spirits. In that case, could it be that they were already dead? Just as they were doubting themselves, someone suddenly shouted, "Look, a passage has appeared above. I can feel the aura of the great wide world there." Hearing that, many people looked up at the sky. A dark red passageway had appeared out of nowhere in the dim skies of hell. When they looked up through the passage, they could feel the aura of the great wide world. "Let's go. Leave this place immediately." Some people couldn't wait to go to the passage. However, there were also some who looked hesitant and stayed where they were without moving. "Brother Zhao, aren't you leaving?" A young man looked at the person beside him, somewhat puzzled. As soon as he finished speaking, the young man surnamed Zhao shook his head. "I don't want to leave." The Fengdu underworld was obviously opened up by a great divine ability. If we stay, we might have other opportunities. If we leave rashly, the gains won't make up for the losses. When the young man heard this, hesitation and struggle appeared on his face. He looked at the people who were rushing towards the passage. When he turned his head, he saw other people who stayed in Fengdu underworld without moving. Those people, obviously, they were the same as his friends. They wanted to stay here and obtain the opportunity. Just as he was hesitating, a voice rang out. Brother Zhao said, "Brother Zhang, there are more and more powerhouses in the world now. With our talent, it's already amazing for us to stop at the celestial being realm. If we want to break through to the true immortal realm, it's just wishful thinking. Right now, only by seizing the opportunity can we break through the current shackles. Last time, when the Purple Cloud Palace and the Demon Palace appeared, I didn't manage to seize the opportunity. This time, I don't want to give up again. I don't want to give up." The young man surnamed Zhao had a determined expression. The opportunity was rare. Although the spiritual energy had risen, and everyone's cultivation had increased greatly, one had to know that the increase in spiritual energy was the benefit of the myriad races. At that time, he was a weakling, and he was still a weakling now. If he wanted to change his fate, he could only grasp the opportunity that ordinary people could not grasp. Otherwise, he could only be mediocre for the rest of his life. The young man surnamed Zhang hesitated for a long time before finally making a decision. "All right, I'll take the risk with Brother Zhao." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.